What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Tsunade begs Naruto to save Konoha? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. It had been 10 years since the death of Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha, betrayed and murdered by the other members of the Konoha 11, his sensei Kakashi, and even Jiraiya, his own godfather, on Tsunade's order. Konoha lost a lot friends after that got out. It was reviled by Danzo of all people during his execution. 8 years ago, 2 months after Naruto's death, Jiraiya had found evidence of Danzo working with Orochimaru during the Suna invasion. His execution was to be witnessed by Konoha and Suna alike. Danzo's wooden arm with the Sharingans as well as his right Sharingan eye, after being discovered upon his standoff at the hands of the Uchiha and Sannin, did it really become apparent just how crazy Danzo's fanaticism had made him. The Uchiha and Senju wanted to lynch Danzo right then and there for his perversion of the family's bloodlines, but Shikamaru stopped them, saying the best way to get even was for Konohagakure as a whole to want him dead, and they still needed to know what else Danzo knows. Maybe Orochimaru would be next to be taken down. Tsunade begrudgingly agreed. The idea came after by the Konoha Council, mainly the civilian side, to invite Suna. The idea was that witnessing Danzo's death might make their alliance even stronger, knowing Konohagakure does not suffer a traitors to their friends even in their own ranks. This would backfire in Tsunade and clan heads' opinion, but were outvoted. Konoha Council chambers day before execution. Tsunade was sitting in her chair in the center of the council. Gaara was to her right in equal sitting. Jiraiya was to her left, standing arm crossed, though hiding it quite well, the guilt of what he had done to Naruto. The depression still clear in his eyes, even if the glare he pointed at Danzo helped hide it. The advisors to the Hokage Homura and Kaharu were there as well, not looking too happy at seeing Danzo. When the evidence of Danzo's deeds were brought to light, the two quickly abandoned him out of such hatred and shame of him and for themselves that they gave Tsunade their retirement forms, saying that they couldn't believe they helped such a madman for such a long time, and recommended Shikaku Nara to be their replacement. Tsunade agreed this would be their last day as the Hokage's advisors. Counselors of Konoha and honored guests of Tsunagakure, today we see Danzo Shimura pay for his crimes against 2 of the 5 great shinobi villages. For Suna, Danzo's crimes are aiding and abetting with a known traitor in the murder of Rasa, the 4th Kazekage of Tsunagakure and father to the 5th Kazekage. And for Konoha, adding known traitor Orochimaru in assassinating the 3 Edo Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi. Adding Oto in Suna invasions of Konoha. Kidnapping bloodline users for root. Not disbanding root program even when ordered to by the 3rd Hokage. Danzo, how do you plead? Tsunade said. Danzo looked at Tsunade, then Jiraiya and finally Gaara and began to laugh. Danzo hadn't laughed since before the first shinobi war almost 60 years ago, so it came out more like a raspy cackle. It scared many counselors in the room, but as quickly as it came it stopped. Hokage-sama, all I've ever done was look out for Konoha. I am the root that keeps the great tree standing at all cost. You, Jiraiya, Kakashi and the Konoha 11 have done that as well the day you killed Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade and Jiraiya's eyes widened. Danzo was supposed to have a seal on his tuft to keep him from spilling sulfur monosulfide rank secrets. Jiraiya did this personally. The council and Suna officials, shocked. The clan heads didn't even know about the assassination. It was an sulfur monosulfide racked mission from the Hokage herself and can't be divulged to anyone, family included. It made them realize why their kids were a whole lot quieter. The official story was that Naruto was on a long-term mission. He was later found dead. They even had a core made to look like Naruto that Jiraiya had discovered later, but before that it was also going away to flush out the Akatsuki that were looking for the Kyuubi outside the village undefeated while they had the chance. Silence from the spectators, then a rush of cheers from the civilian council of Konohagakure and anger from the Tsunagakure shinobi. Gaara was shocked, angry, sad at hearing not only Danzo's words, but the cheers of the council that'd make him unbelievably mad. Ki festered for him. If he wasn't the man, he was now a Kazekage with friends, family, comrades, with a village depending on him. Blood would have been spilled, but in loud of that, Gaara shouted, WWWWHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHHThe key flowed through the chamber sand appeared everywhere, but as it was stated, Gaara is now of a higher standing and in control of his emotions, for the most part. The sand fell back to his gourd. Ki, if only barely vanished. Tsunade Senju after Danzo is sent to hell where he belongs. We will have a very long discussion about this outrage and why Suna and Konoha should still be allies. Tsunade would have spoken but Danzo beat her to it. Are you really going to take that from a rival Kage Senju? Alliance or not, every village is still a potential enemy, even every shinobi in this village if not trained correctly is a threat to its power. Silence Danzo. Tsunade screamed. You don't get to make clams like that, not after everything you've done. You are nothing but a bitter vindictive old man who will never be the Hokage of Konoha. Danzo narrowed his one good eye at Tsunade. Maybe Senju, but I've been running the village's protection as the Dark Hokage for years. Since the supposed god of shinobi became a glorified pencil pusher doing what must be done. Everything from military activity to assassination to unauthorized recon without Hiruzen looking over my shoulder. I am what the Hokage what you should be, eliminating threats both foreign and domestic, serving the village by making it the most feared and powerful. If I was Hokage, Genin would be trained from day one, doing at the very least C-ranked missions and do away with those stupid D-ranked ones that turn shinobi into more of a novelty than the warriors they should be, but instead they paint fences and chase cats around. Hardly what I call work for soldiers that were trained from their first day in the academy on the best ways to kill, learning about the art of the shinobi only to be caretakers and farmhands in animal control. It disgusts me to no end. Danzo said the last part through his teeth. Tsunade anger showed. What would you have done then besides start a war with the world to prove your strength? Danzo's face and voice lacked anything resembling emotion. I would have put an end to the farce of shinobi with humanity and used Tobirama-sensei's teachings. He had better understanding than Hashirama-sama ever did. That victory comes with a price, sacrifices must be made. I learned that lesson well in the first war. One lost a lot of friends and clansmen. He looked to his right side. I learned that day that as Hokage you must put aside all emotions, all attachments, to do what needs to be done and sacrifice what you need to sacrifice in order to active victory, even going so far as to let Orochimaru amputate my arm and remove my eye and replace it with what you called an abomination of science and God. I called it progress. I did it all for the sake of the village I love and would do anything to protect, even at the cost of my very body and soul. That is what all Konoha shinobi should be. Don't you dare use Konoha to justify your actions, Danzo. What you have done to yourself is of your own volition, including that monstrosity you let Orochimaru put on you. And as for the war, that was different. Lord Tsunade did what he did because we were in the middle of a war. You and Sarutobi Sensei were the only ninja on hand and he trusted your abilities more than anyone else's. Remember Danzo, he sacrificed himself to save you, your team and Sarutobi Sensei's team, said Jiraiya in anger. I know he did, boy. I was there in the trenches before you could walk. I know war, its faults and its uses. Tobirama-sensei made a mistake as a leader. He should have sent Sarutobi out and saved himself so he could come back and destroy Kumo full force later and show the power of the great Konohagakure, but instead he sacrificed himself, and not but a month later talks of peace with the very person that killed our Hokage, your uncle. Danzo looked at Tsunade with distant. Why didn't you volunteer to hold them off back then, Danzo? Said Kaharu, the advisor to the Hokage, former female member of the legendary team Tobirama. What? Said Danzo angrily. You forget I was there all those years ago with you, Hiruzen and Tobirama-sensei, and the same goes with Homura here. I remember it very clearly. Tobirama asked for a volunteer to hold off the Kumo kill squad after us giving the rest of his time to escape. I remember that look in your eyes, Danzo. It was fear you were going to volunteer, but didn't fear that you have preached for so long that a shinobi shouldn't have held you back. Hiruzen was just as scared as the rest of us but didn't hesitate for a moment when it came to his comrades' safety. It took me many years to realize it was Tobirama's final test. We were Konoha's elite, the smartest, strongest and most loyal. Any one of us could have been Hokage that day if we volunteered, but we, unlike Hiruzen, couldn't find the courage to do so, Kaharu said, looking at Danzo dead in his eye, clearly not liking his courage being in question. As Hokage you must defend not only your village but all who live in it. Know that to be Hokage means being the head of a larger family. This is the will of fire Hashirama-sama dreamed of, and all Hokages past and present must abide by it. Tobirama-sensei was going to sacrifice himself regardless of who volunteered. He just wanted to know that he was leaving Konoha in good hands. I myself may have respected your realism when it came to the security of Konoha, Danzo, and I believe you would lay down your life for it even now, because in your own way you were always loyal to Konoha and would continue protecting it to the end, said Homura, catching many by surprise. Their eyes grow cold, however, as Homura spoke once again. However, you have done too much damage to the reputation of Konoha, and your traitorous acts costed us a Hokage, a brilliant shinobi and a very close friend. The atrocities you have committed under this village's name will not go unpunished, he said, loud and clear anger in his voice. Danzo was angry. He looked at the old advisors. Don't forget Koharu and you Homura, you two have helped lay most of the groundwork for a good number of those so-called atrocities. You two backed me more than Hiruzen on a great many things. Root existed because of your backing me. You knew Hiruzen wouldn't do the things I would. Going unchecked was because of your backing. The funding you gave me for all these years and convincing these good-for-nothing counselors to outvote many of the Hokage's propositions has allowed me to come this far. You and Homura have been nothing but tools going against your so-called friend for over 3 decades. You knew Hiruzen was getting old and lost much of his flame as a shinobi. He could have killed me when me and Hanzo teamed up. He could have killed Orochimaru when he attacked, but Hiruzen was weak and wouldn't kill his one-time student. And as for my not volunteering all those years ago, that one act of hesitation on my part turned me into what I am today. I have spent years making up for it, so much so you joined me instead of you, best friend. The 2 aging advisors lowered their heads in shame at that. Danzo was right. It's a pity, Tsunade, when you took my advice on Naruto I was almost starting to see you as a real leader and Jiraiya as a real shinobi. Shame not even the protection of the very village your family created, fought and dead for is not good enough for you. That got Gaara's attention. What do you mean advice? What did you tell Senju? Tsunade ignored Gaara, not using her title to stop Danzo. Anbu. She yelled. The Anbu speeded towards Danzo but were stopped by Sand. Kazahage Dono. Tsunade shouted to try and stop Gaara, but the look in his eyes froze not just her but all in the room, Konoha and Suna alike. Though not directly at her, she could still see a Gaara with his sand flowing all around the room, chin resting on his crossed hands, elbows firmly on the table, calm yet cold, eyes frozen in a chilling sense of malice. Danzo, it is taking a lot of my willpower not to revert to my past self, the one that struck fear into the very fabric of my own people, the self that almost justified the bigotry Jinchuriki have faced. It was this past self of mine that almost distorted this village, if not for the efforts of one man, a man that saved me from the darkness, that helped me overcome and be what I am today. And this is the man you claimed to have a hand in the death of. So tell me, Danzo Shimura of Konohagakure, what did you say to Tsunade? His voice and deeds from the past echoed in the minds of all in the room and set shivers up their spines, yet Danzo was calm and collected. Danzo gave Gaara his same indifferent expression he always had and spoke. I told Tsunade the truth. Naruto was growing to be the danger he was always going to be to the village without proper guidance, but how I said it to her and what she found out when I was captured are different, Danzo said vaguely. What do you mean by that? The Cage said, eyes locked on to Danzo's very soul. I told Senju of the degradation of Naruto's seal. After some long and costly research I discovered that even though Naruto can take the Kyuubi's chakra whenever he liked, he didn't, because prolonged exposure to that level would destroy his body and would allow the Kyuubi to take over, and the seal itself was used on the fly. As they say, it had way too many drawbacks, but there was a failsafe the 4th Hokage put in the seal. If Naruto was killed by unnatural means, the Kyuubi world die with him, or at the very least it would rip the monster apart to the point where it would take centuries to reform, if at all it was true. But as I said, Naruto rarely used the Kyuubi unless pushed normally into an uncontrollable rage. You've seen it, Jiraiya, same with Hitaki Uchiha and Haruno. Scary, isn't it? Now imagine what 16 years of bottled up anger from almost 2 decades of beatings, hatred and ignorance from your own people every day of your life. You know that very well, don't you, Gaara? What Danzo said made sense to many civilian counselors and the clan heads. Danzo looked at the people and smiled. It's funny, if Naruto was given to me to begin with, none of this would have happened. He would have been the weapon he was born to become, but because of Henzon's weakness and the village's bigotry, Naruto became a clear threat. I never wanted people to find out about his tenet for this very reason. Root, however, would have been his home with like-minded people who respected power and the chain of command. Naruto could have showed his true potential. I wouldn't have cared just about his tenet. He would have been trained by the best in all forms of combat, not just his power from the Kyuubi. Naruto could have been a Jonin captain by now and very well have succeeded me. When my time to leave this world came, his potential could have been limitless like his parents. Tsunade's eyes widened. He wouldn't, she thought. And who would they be? Gaara said before Danzo could say. A fist flew past his sand and into Danzo's face, shooting him to a wall. It should have knocked him out. That fist belonged to Jiraiya. I've heard enough from you, Danzo. Jiraiya shouted angrily. You have disrespected our Hokage's Konohagakure its allies and know you want to leak more S-ranked secrets. Not anymore. Tonight I'm going to seal that mouth of your shut. Go up proper this time, then tomorrow you're going to die in front of the village you disgraced with your actions." An angry Jiraiya yelled. Danzo, with blood leaking down his mouth, chuckled. "What's the point of it being classified anymore, Jiraiya? Are you afraid that it will show just how much a failure you truly are as a sensei and as a shinobi?" he said, smiling, then whisper so only Jiraiya could hear, "Or even as a godfather." That stunned Jiraiya, making him wince in guilt. "Take him away." Tsunade ordered. Ambu appeared, grabbed Danzo and disappeared silently, quickly followed by a very angry Jiraiya. Danzo pissed him off so much Tsunade wasn't even a factor right now. The council and Suna officials looked at each other, suspicious of one another. Gaara broke that silence by standing and saying, "We're going back to the hotel. We will see Danzo's execution, then leave this accursed village. Hokage, I expect a meeting first thing after the execution. No excuses." Gaara and company left the chambers. Tsunade's head hanging low, voice in but a whisper, everyone dismissed. Everyone filed out of the room. Jiraiya, who was normally there for her but already left to deal with Danzo, leaving her alone. When the door closed behind them, she waited a minute, then began to cry. Torture and interrogation HQ. 20 minutes later. Danzo was strapped to a chair, blood pouring down his face, chest and legs. Anko and Ibiki watching in the background, getting a first-hand look at what happens when you anger a Sannin. Neither have ever seen this side of Jiraiya before. The normality, goofy, easygoing, perverted Sannin was ripping Danzo to shreds. They never liked Danzo, but the rarest thing happened. The head tortures felt if only slightly sorry for Danzo, even if they were taking notes of Jiraiya's technique, and even with the violence infected on him, Danzo held in the pain, grinding his teeth. The former root commander was never going to give Jiraiya the satisfaction of hearing him scream in pain when it was done. Danzo grinned, if only slightly. "I thought you would finally be the shinobi you're known for, but at the end of the day, no matter how many titles you and Senju have, Jiraiya, you two are not worthy of be called ninja. A perverted clown and a bitter drunk. You two are such a disappointment to this village. If I would have trained the three of you, we'd still have Orochimaru. You would have taken your job more seriously, and Tsunade wouldn't have the emotional crutch about her boyfriend and brother who knows Jiraiya," he said with a smirk. "You might have even had a chance with her." Jiraiya's fist hit Danzo in the face, breaking his nose, knocking him out. "Shut the fuck up." Jiraiya yanked Danzo's tuff from his mouth, using a piece of paper with a seal on it, placed it on Danzo's tuff. The seal would render Danzo unable to speak and burn. All the while Danzo was alive, he looked at his two counterparts Anko and Ibiki with authority in his voice. He said, "Take the piece of shit to his cell. I want him on round the clock watch. Anyone fucks this up will be next to see me mad, understood?" The two nodded and got out of Jiraiya's way. While made his was out, Jiraiya needed a drink and he wouldn't stop till the execution tomorrow. 2 hours later, in Danzo's cell. Danzo woke up with a massive headache, the pain Jiraiya inflicted on him taking its toll, the burning of the seal making his mouth feel like it was on fire. But Danzo wouldn't feel that pain for long. However, if Jiraiya would have bothered to look, he would have noticed a second seal under Danzo's tuff, a nullification seal that was made special for what had happened to him previously. When he activated it, cancelled out Jiraiya's seal. He also had a suicide seal on his upper right wisdom tooth. Every root member had one, including him. Even if he never thought he'd ever use it, Danzo could have smiled at Jiraiya's stupidity, but didn't, even if he wanted to, with all his hard work undone, with his sacrifices in vain, abandonment by the council and his closest allies, the Hokage's advisors Homura and Kaharu. Danzo had nothing to smile about. For decades he had been in Hiruzen Sarutobi's shadow, doing everything he couldn't and wouldn't do as Hokage, putting his honor to the side for his bigger picture of making Konoha his home, his village, the most powerful force in the world, and he could not let anything stand in the way of that. Not a rival village trying to conquer or destroy Konoha, or the weak-willed and minded fools in it trying to pacify his village either. Danzo had done everything to stop these things his whole life, and what does he get? Executed tomorrow for treason. Him, Danzo Shimura, Konohagakure's most fearlessly loyal shinobi, then find to story his village, ruin his legacy, everything he had fought for. He, the last surviving Shimura, will use this to let them all know what they have done to the son of their greatest hero, the fourth Hokage. Day of Danzo's execution. Danzo was walked down a path made between a crowds waiting to see the traitor die. He long stopped his false limping and walked perfectly fine, his one good arm tied behind his back to a rope around his waist, his one eye looking forward to the pole he'd be tied to. Tsunade to the right of it, Jiraiya to its left. Danzo's trademark pure neutral look was on his face as civilian and shinobi alike shouted, "Traitor!" and "Disease of Konoha!" At him, it didn't surprise him to see Homura and Kaharu closely watching the two aging advisors and former teammates of Hiruzen after hearing that Danzo once worked with Hanzo the Salamander in an assassination attempt against Hiruzen. The two wanted Danzo dead. They may have not have always agreed with the Hokage, but that didn't mean they didn't respect, care, or wanted their oldest and dearest friend dead. And when more information reached them about Danzo's other dealings come to light, it disgusted them to no end. Even in their advanced years, they fought with the troops during the Otto-Suna invasion. Their code, practice what you preach, and they did. Haruma and Kaharu took a chunk out of Orochimaru's invasion's force, saving fleeing citizens and injured shinobi. One does not be put on a team with the god of shinobi and be trained by a Hokage and end up weak. They were here for two reasons: see the death of Danzo and make absolutely sure it worked. They knew better than anyone that Danzo was the trickiest bastard you would ever meet, and they knew most surviving Root members were still loyal to him and would try to save his life if given the chance, and were going to be a part of the execution squad charged with Danzo's death. Danzo walked atop the platform with his guards and was tied to the pole. From there he could see the crowds and the Konoha 11 with access to the front row. Their hand in Naruto's death took its toll worst, so when Tsunade told them it was a mistake, a cloud of guilt washed over them. They avoided the Suna guests like the plague on Tsunade's orders for fear Gaara will flip and kill them. Shikamaru looked a little more depressed. Apparently Gaara's sister Tamari didn't want to speak to him, and even then Gaara would forbid his sister from being with anyone of Konoha. Regardless, Danzo found them pathetic. This is what his village had protecting it. He didn't think it would last another year with these good-for-nothing children at the helm. Once you cut the root off the tree it will fall. A pity, he thought to himself, saddened for his beloved Konoha. Tsunade raised her hand in the air, silencing the crowd with chakra-enhanced vocals. She spoke, "People of Konoha and of Suna, we are here today to witness the death of a traitor, Danzo Shimura. You have been judged by the council and Hokage of Konohagakure and by the honored case Cage of Sanagakure, and have been found guilty on all accounts and will be executed by means of the Great Element Release Execution." The Great Element's execution was created by Hiruzen Sarutobi during the Great Shinobi War, separating into 5 clones of himself. They would then use Hiruzen's strongest jutsu of their particular given element in sequence into the single most destructive attack that can be done by a single shinobi in recorded jutsu history, and cemented Hiruzen Sarutobi's titles as the Professor for his mastery of the elements, and more famously, the God of Shinobi for being able to pull off such a move to begin with. When it comes to traitors of Danzo's skill as a shinobi, it was a don't take any chances jutsu, even if it is known as the overkill jutsu, and Tsunade thought it would be a nice middle finger to Danzo killing him with the third's legendary jutsu, but seeing as no one shinobi can pull the attack, it would be a 5 shinobi attack with Asuma for the wind, Sasuke for fire, Himura for earth, Kaharu for water, finished of Kakashi's Chidori for the most likely unneeded killing blow. Hiruzen's former teammates and son jumped at the opportunity for revenge for their father and friend Sasuke because of the evidence he found of the Uchiha massacre for Danzo's former arm and eye, and about Itachi's role while not absolving his brother any if at all. It brought to light on a great many things about his family which angered and saddened him greatly. Danzo's death is for his brother and family. Kakashi was going to do it to regain any honor he still had left. Naruto's death affected him worst of all, with another comrade dead by his hand and lying to Iruka about the truth. Kakashi felt like he was the biggest failure of Team 7, Minato and Konoha. He had failed his own teachings and hoped Naruto's spurt could forgive him. Finally the time has come. Tsunade raised her hand to signal the execution until. And here I thought the condemned were allowed some last words. Hokage-sama, Danzo said with smirk. Tsunade's eye widened. How? Jiraiya said in surprise and anger, only for a smiling Danzo to open his mouth and lifting his tongue to show the nullification seal under it all become annoyingly clear to Jiraiya how Danzo got past his silence, sealed twice no less. Tsunade mentally cursed Danzo. He got her with her own grandfather's law. She was wishing her grandpa didn't write so many merciful laws when he built Konoha. The whole point of the seal was to keep that from happening. People of Konohagakure. Danzo shouted for all to hear as silence fell on the crowd. My name is Danzo Shimura, Root Commander, the Dark Hokage Shinobi of Konohagakure. I am all these things, but the one thing I am not is a traitor. I have served Konohagakure for decades doing what must be done, but today I'm being punished for doing my duties as protector of the Great Tree. But even my beloved village can make monsters. First there is Me, the faithful commander of Root, then Orochimaru, man-made monsters, the both of us. The last but not by far the least, the Kyuubi brat Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the fourth's legacy and son. Danzo had to laugh at the expression from the crowd. You people have been tormenting and now killed the very child of your greatest heroes Minato Namikaze and Kuisha Uzumaki ha ha ha. Danzo laughed insanely, all sense finally leaving him. And the best part is from stopping Gaara to making Tsunade Hokage to all the treaties and trading agreements he has gotten for us. He has done more for the village than any of you have or will ever do, and because of your bigotry you never knew what was so obviously staring at you right in the face the whole time. This village has lost a fine shinobi and what could have been an even greater weapon. If you think about it, you're all just as guilty as me. Danzo in a wide still cackling smile looked at them all. It was only a matter of time before your torture and tormenting would have taken its toll on him. He wasn't the Kyuubi, you morons. You have been taking your revenge on an innocent child this whole time. He saved this village when he was minutes old. I want you all to remember that for the rest of your miserable lives. Danzo's hideous cackle echoed through the crowd of guilty, sad and angry villagers and shinobi. Tsunade with rage and sadness yelled at the execution squad to fire. Their hesitation due to shock of this revolution was all Danzo needed. I may die here today, but not by your order, Senju. Danzo activated his suicide seal and started convalescing, a smile on his face, knowing that civilians and shinobi alike are going to look for something or someone to blame for the secret behind Naruto's life and now death. Tsunade won't be able to stop them. It was never his intention to die like this, but he'll savor the ever so small victory with his last breaths, or so he thought as he was dying. Sand covered his body. His dying eye widened when that last thing he heard was sand coffin. A dying but shocked Danzo exploded into bloody chunks that spilled on the horrified crowd. Many turned to see Gaara in his usual crossed-armed stance, same usual look on his face. He didn't know if Danzo died before being crushed, but he hoped Danzo didn't. Without a single word spoken, Gaara made his way to the gates. Tsunade quickly made her way to the cage but was stopped by his bodyguards and siblings, weapons drawn. Lord Cage, she yelled. Gaara continued walking but said, "Forget the meeting, Senju. I've had enough of Konoha to last me a lifetime. Please, Lord Cage," Tsunade said, begging in her voice. "We were tricked by Danzo. I never wanted any of this to happen, not to anyone and not to Naruto." The name itself out loud broke her heart. He was like a son to me, tears running down her cheeks. Tamari couldn't help but scoff. "Some mother you are then. Naruto saved my brother's life and saved your village more time than I doubt any of you could count, and this is how you replay him." The words that came from Tamari cut like a knife on her soul. Tamari then turned to the Konoha 11, especially Shikamaru. "I cannot believe you all. Naruto, your friend, your comrade, someone who almost died for you more than once, who would have done it gladly to know you were safe. How could you do it? Did any of you even protest?" Neji spoke up on behalf of his friends and Cage. "We were following orders given to us by Hokage-sama. We didn't want to do anymore. Then she liked ordering, but at the time he was a major danger, being controlled by the Kyuubi. Or so we thought. It took a week just for us to gather the nerve to do this mission." The depression was heard loud and clear in his voice. Gaara didn't want to hear anymore. "We are leaving. I will discuss this with the Suna Council. Until then, Konohagakure is on very thin ice. Don't come anywhere near my territory or it's war, understood?" Tsunade nodded, not wanting to anger him any further, and another reason to thank Naruto. From what she heard, the old Gaara would have murdered everyone right then and there. It would be violent, bloody retribution for their willful murder of his most treasured friend and most likely second brother. She told her men that rushed to her aid to stand down and allowed Gaara to leave. With Danzo's death and the truth about Naruto's heritage deeds and death, Konoha had a lot to think about. All Tsunade could do is prepare for the worst that is yet to come. The day Gaara left was the day Konoha will remember as one of the worst days in village's history. During the execution of the traitor Danzo Shimura, they failed to keep him from revealing the truth about Naruto's death and failing to notice wave merchants in the village to sell their merchandise. When they returned to wave, they went straight to the village leader, the bridge builder Tazuna, who was not pleased at all. The Konoha-Suna alliance was still active, mainly due to the Cage's brother Kankuro. After explaining to Gaara that as much as he himself hated to defend the village after what they did to his brother and leader's best friend, Gaara had to understand that one ninja, no matter how great of a man he was not a good enough reason to abandon Konoha. Kankuro's reasons were more for military backing in times of war. Suna didn't fully recover yet from the losses of the Suna Auto invasion, and Konoha did sign a new treaty after that, so Gaara could consider Konoha and Suna Suna. Even Kankuro was to oversee the new treaty to be signed on Gaara's behalf. Believe it or not, the makeup-wearing puppeteer can be a very good negotiator when he needs to be. This new treaty ensured Konoha would back Suna but also give the Case Cage all missions coming from Spring Country with no hassle from now on, and the resource they needed at a lower price. Konoha was backed into a corner with their old contacts and allies disappearing and rumors of a war with Iwagakure after hearing Konoha didn't have a Jinchuriki anymore and had to agree. Konoha was still the strongest village, but the Naruto incident, as it is called, cost the village a fortune with non-military countries that Naruto had a hand in, and lost respect from military villages for being so easily manipulated into killing one of their own. Even though it was the son of the hated Yellow Flash and the Red Devil, it actually made it worse. Iwagakure would have tried to kill Naruto if they knew who he was. That much is true, but figured the son of the Yellow Flash would most likely be Konohagakure's version of royalty, so they were shocked to say the least, but saw an opportunity for a takeover of their most hated enemy now that they were short on legacy and, more importantly, a Jinchuriki. Kumogakure the Raikage did respect the fourth Hokage, even though he wouldn't admit it, and his blood brothers with a Jinchuriki like the Raikages before him as well, so hearing such treatment of the fourth's son disappointed him greatly. This realization just how far Konoha has fallen. Kirigakure was too busy fighting a civil war to care much about it, but still news travels fast. The Land of Waves cut the trade agreement in half, only really hiring Konoha to do guard duty on their caravans when they were passing through Fire Country on the way to other nations. They were barely C-ranked missions when Wave used to pay for a ranked. It was that or loss it altogether. A statue was built over the Great Naruto Bridge in memory of their fallen hero. Cell 7 was banished from stepping foot in Wave territory under threat of total contact termination. Spring's daimyo Koyuki Kazuhana gave all her country's missions Tsunade. Following word of the Naruto incident, she didn't outright ban Konoha from Spring lands, but she did use her old contacts in the filmmaking industry to put an embargo on movies going to Konoha, costing the village a little bit of revenue because they're one of the only places in Fire Country that can accommodate a movie theater. The financial crisis got so bad for the first few years after the war that the council outvoted the Hokage when it came to dipping into the joint Uzumaki Namikaze bank account. Seeing as there was no living relatives for the money to go to, it saved the village but depleted it altogether. Jiraiya was heartbroken, using his dead students and wife's funds and his now deceased godson's inheritance to save a village he was starting to despise. Even worse, some councillors were found dipping into those funds for their own gain. Jiraiya's anger was stuff of legends after that. The once known Konoha 11 were now known as the Kyuubi Killers to many in the village, who, even knowing of Naruto's heritage, they were still happy now the beast was dead, and to many others like the Ichiraku family, the traitor 11, the knowledge of what they have done hunted many of the legendary ninja. Team Guy split up. Rock Lee, realizing his actions cost him a rival and, more importantly, a friend, thought his flames of youth had now been taken, and as punishment for himself left the team and the tutelage of his longtime sensei friend and father figure Mike Guy, stating, "I will not have your flames of youth end with mine." Rock Lee still trains non-stop but does not have the same vigor as he did after his self-exile from his sensei and friends. Neji as well left, gaining back his faith in fate. He now spends most of his time at the side of his cousin Hinata, keeping her safe from the world that would harm her when he wasn't on an Ambu mission or spending time with Tenten. Tenten spends most of her time as a blacksmith. She still takes missions and has joined Anbu. She didn't really know Naruto personally outside the occasional mission, but to see what he did for Neji and Lee made her sad. Depriving the world of such a positive presence to those around him hurt her. She still trained with Guy but noticed the loss of his students hurt her. Normally over the top teacher to no end. Team 8 Depression and New Goals. Hinata couldn't believe the news following Danzo's execution about Naruto. She loved him like no other and always saw a hero in the making and a future Hokage she would follow no matter what, but when informed by Tsunade about Naruto being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and ordered for the mission to assassinate him to prove her loyalty to clan and country, Hinata couldn't believe it. Was she being manipulated by the Kyuubi the whole time? Was Naruto being controlled by it? If so, when? She couldn't believe it, but she trusted the Hokage. It hurt her more than anything to help in his murder, even more to find out it was for no reason, just a paranoid delusion of Danzo. She cried in her room for weeks on end. Even her father left her alone but came out with a sense of purpose. She vowed to change her ways in Naruto's memory by any means necessary. Eventually she beat her father in combat and became the new Hyuga clan head. Kiba may not admit it easily, but he saw Naruto as many things: a friend, a rival for Hinata's affection, and most importantly a member of his pack. It's the Inuzuka clan's way of making an outsider feel like family. He may have picked on Naruto from time to time, but that was Kida's way of showing brotherly affection for the blonde. After word got out, Kiba fell into a depression, only really holding it in until he and Hinata would meet privately. He wasn't trying anything, he just wanted to comfort his longtime teammate and friend. He vowed to ensure the safety of the pack by any means, going so far to make it a witnessed blood oath. Shino, much like Kiba, saw Naruto as a hive member. The Abarames, much like the insects they carry, believe that one must never betray the hive. To do so betrays one's very being. Shino's only comfort was that the Hokage, the queen, ordered his death, and like the good soldier he followed those orders. Shino still had his emotions hidden like always, but to an Aburame he might as well be screaming his pain to the world. He also joined Ambu as a means of escape from his day-to-day. Team 10 overworking. Shikamaru did everything in his being to forget about the tragedy he took part in. The formerly lazy Nara has been putting all hands on deck. He has put everything he has into his training, his skills in strategy, and helping his father in being the new Hokage advisor. Shikamaru hasn't stopped for the last couple of years. People assumed it was so Shikamaru can be Konoha's ambassador to Suna, but he and Tamari haven't talked since she left. Ino become a full member of T&I in good standing since the Naruto incident, taking her job very seriously. She ditched her ditzy persona and has spent her time working. Choji wanted to quit being a shinobi altogether and only really stays because of his clan name and for his best friend Shikamaru's sake. He has since been working as a cook at his family restaurant. When not on missions, he dropped 50 pounds due to his lack of eating since the incident, despite the Akamichi's will, and works more on his political education. Team 7 undermanned, overcompensating. Sakura spent her days crying privately in her home by night and giving a warm smile to patients by day. She continued to work in Konohagakure Hospital, focused on only her work. She took Naruto's death very hard. She reflected on her treatment of her teammate as kids, then comrades, then murderer and victim. She couldn't help but realize she was nicest to him the days before his assassination at her hands. She hasn't spoken to anyone in quite some time, expirations being her parents, her mother for her kind words, and her father doing everything in his power to see his little girl smile again. Sakura continues to train with Tsunade, but now just for medical reasons. The Konohagakure suicide rate went up from shinobi that mistreated Naruto, who severed with the late Uzumaki and Namikaze. Sasuke only really showed by chance while on a mission from Otogakure when he bumped to the Konoha team when they were about to kill Naruto. Regardless of his shock at the situation, he saw a chance to strike. He wanted Naruto dead for the power it would bring him, but Naruto in a way had got the last laugh. Naruto had a knife strapped behind his waist when Sasuke unexpectedly showed and stabbed Naruto with his sword. The blade Naruto had slashed upward, taking one of the Uchiha's legendary eyes before falling to his death off a cliff into the river below. The pain Sasuke felt was enough of a distraction for Jiraiya to knock him out. He was brought back to Konoha and placed in a cell for his crimes. He was there for 3 months. When he was brought before the council, Sasuke had to choose between swearing full allegiance to Konohagakure, have a seal placed on him preventing him from ever trying to escape the village again, and help take down Orochimaru, or be executed for his crimes. Right then and there he chose life. Since then he has done everything and anything to prove his loyalty and has started to feel guilty over the death of his one-time best friend. Sasuke has been a recluse when not on missions. He proved his loyalty after his fight with Danzo when he saved the Hokage's life. He is now an Ambu captain. Kakashi rejoined Ambu for a time but quit following a dispute with fellow agents. He was placed on leave from duty and has been seen wandering around the village looking lost and depressed, finding out he killed his sensei's son. He has been forced into therapy. Tsunade did not want another Jiraiya. Sannin trail of self-destruction. Tsunade's order to send the Kyuubi killers on the loyalty test in the way of the assassination of Naruto Uzumaki damaged her job and life. Trying to do right by Naruto's name, she had a tombstone made in his honor and a funeral. Even though Naruto's body was never found, she would send Konohagakure's best trackers, but no successful finds. She wanted to quit being Hokage, but in Naruto's memory she stayed. She has since quit drinking on the job, even though she lives with the hell of a clear mind when doing it. Jiraiya has taken to the drink like an old lover. He's almost never in his right mind and has been having recurring dreams of his student Minato and Kushina attempting to kill him. Has had multiple suicide attempts after the ass-kicking from Tenchi Ichiraku of all people. He has since been forced to move into Tsunade's houses so his teammate and help him battle his depression. He has also destroyed the blueprints for the seal he used on Naruto to stop the Kyuubi. The Init Jinchuriki seal has been sought after since, to his great shame and displeasure. Orochimaru would have most likely laughed for days about what happened to Naruto if it wasn't for losing Sasuke in the process and hearing his former apprentice and future host now only had one eye and teamed back up with Konohagakure to kill him. He has since gone totally off the map but suspected to reappear when he can take his revenge. The Konohamaru Corp knew, hated and goals. Konohamaru was sad, angry and depressed. Naruto was his friend, his boss, his rival and brother all round into one. Naruto was the first to see him for more than Hiruzen Sarutobi's grandson and treated him like any other comrade. Konohamaru has on more than one occasion tried to kill Sasuke but continues to lose. Tsunade keeps him from being arrested. He now puts all his time into training and doesn't look at the traitor 11 as any more than that. His uncle Asuma has tried everything to apologize for the sack for his students but it fell on deaf ears. His dream has changed form, wanting to be Hokage for the village to being one, so he can't get rid of Tsunade from the position. Moaji follows Konohamaru's lead and feels just as bad about Naruto but has tried to get him off his fixation on revenge. Udon backs his friends but harbors little faith in their future accomplishments. The Ichiraku's out the door. Tenchi Ichiraku was many things in his life: a loving father and ramen chefs, a generally happy and proud man, but before that, and lesser known fact was, he served Konohagakure, a shinobi before, and knee injury forced him to retirement. Even lesser known information was he was on the same team as Minato Namikaze, which was how he liked it. He didn't fight anymore and was more than proud to work with his daughter every day for the rest of his life. He knew both of Naruto's parents but only realized it after seeing the boy eat ramen like his dad. He even secretly tried adopting him but was unable to. By the third, it broke the old man's heart to deny Tenchi, but he didn't say why. When Jiraiya entered his stand, his combat experience kicked in and in a blind rage beat his former sensei almost to death and verbally did the same. The last thing he did was throw a knife in front of Jiraiya and walked away. Ayame was distorted at the loss of her little brother. She banned half the village from their stand and her father spent some of the savings to leave the village. She managed to start a new ramen stand in Wave where they have reserved praise all around the other nations. Shizune loyal but bitter. Shizune continues to remain by her cage aunt and mother figure's side, but Naruto's death made her feel a little worse for the wear. She was there when Tsunade issued the assassination of Naruto. It hurt her dearly to think the very person who saved Tsunade's and hers life once was going to die on Tsunade's order. When the truth came out, Tsunade and hers relationship took a nosedive. She is still working for her mentor but is still cold and distant when the mood sets in. Iruka, the father that lost his son. When Iruka heard the news, he had the worst time hearing it. He was so angry, so sad at the loss of his boy he thought of as a little brother, then later a son. He stormed through the village like a madman. The humble schoolteacher destroyed several Ambu bodyguards to get to the Hokage's office. He then kicked down Tsunade's door and threw his headband at her and quit in spectacular fashion. The same day, he was spotted leaving the village before an explosion was heard at the Uchiha compound. Konoha hasn't heard from him since, but that day would always be known as Iruka's rage. The end of Akatsuki. The only good news that came out of the Naruto incident, if you're not one of the villages that celebrated the real end of the Yellow Flash and red-haired demon's bloodline, was after a year the Akatsuki organization fell apart due to being unable to get the Kyuubi. Many members of the organization didn't see a point in catching the remaining Jinchuriki and left the organization. Pain, Nagato, and Konan only joined Tobi, Obito, as a means to bring peace to the world, but with Naruto's death and word getting out of a seal preventing the Kyuubi from reforming later, they saw no reason to deal with the arrogance of the Uchiha. They teamed up on Tobi, who escaped in a time warp. Both continue serving as a Mikage and Chief Second in a Megacure. Itachi left following the news and went off the radar. He occasionally appeared in Konoha to see his brother's progress but finds himself saddened each time at the sight of his one-eyed little brother. Itachi cursed Danzo. Itachi was dying, he was going blind, and his brother lacked the ambition to kill him right now. It made matters worse that Itachi himself was called the last loyal Uchiha when the truth came out about the massacre in a revenge ploy by Orochimaru's agents. Deidara quit following Itachi. The Mad Bomber tried to blow up the Uchiha but was killed following the attack by self-destruction. Iwagakure paid a heavy sum to the bounty hunter Kakuzu, who after witnessing the death made a deal. He will take the money for Deidara but in return provide Itachi with his underworld contacts. Both parties agreed. Kakuzu, due to the organization's now lack of money, left immediately. He was offered a job by the same shadow company that makes the bingo books, and the offer of cash and the erase of his bounty was too good to be true. He has since been working still as a bounty hunter but also does accounting with Kakuzu. You pay your debts on time, no expectations. Hidan disappeared from the organization but was later found in the ruins of his former home Yugakure that he destroyed and rebuilt his temple in Jushin's glory. Somehow he has gotten enough followers and financial backing to be a legitimate threat. The madman of Jushin is now the high priest of distraction. Kisame rejoined Kirihikure with the rebellion. He saved the new Mizukage Mai and revived amnesty for his crimes against the former Mizukage. Zetsu has yet to be found. Konoha a root regrowing. Tsunade was busy in her office when she got an unexpected visit. It was Sai of all people. After Danzo's death, many root agents were captured with the help of Sai. Some were even welcomed into Enbu. Tsunade spoke. Sai, how can I help you? Sai, still not really able to talk with emotion, just said, Hokage-sama, I'm here to ask you to bring back the root Anbu with only the remaining former members. Tsunade was surprised. What? Why on earth would I do that? Hokage-sama, many of the root members have served the division since before Third Sama's decree to disband it. Others like myself were born in root. This is all we know. Anbu does not work the way we are accustomed to, and we still have Danzo's words echoing in the back of our minds: to defend the great tree or die trying. That is root all. It's all we have ever were and will be. Tsunade spoke. Sai, if Danzo still has control over many of you, how can I trust you to be any different than him? Sai gave her a serious look. Danzo was mad with power, Hokage-sama, but his message was true: defeat the enemies and defend the great tree, and because we would report to you and you alone till the last of us is gone. No new members, just the remaining root shinobi. Anbu already does that. Why does root not like it? Anbu will never trust root. In their eyes we are but lucky traders. His head lowered at that, but he continued. And in root's eyes Anbu is too soft and slow to act. At least in root we know where we stand with one another. Tsunade huffed. I'll give the matter some thought and give you my sincere answer by the end of the week. Sai bowed. That's all we ask, Hokage-sama. Tsunade unfortunately has to forgive. When Gaara returned to his village, he remained calm and cool as his people cheered their Cage's safe return. When he got to his office, however, Gaara went to a liquor cabinet that was behind a secret door in a bookshelf. The first Cage had installed. Gaara's predecessor was a smart man, a businessman, and unwavering when it came his people, but even he liked the occasional drink. Gaara wasn't much for the stuff, but he had another reasons for the cabinet. There was a specific bottle he was looking for. When he found it, he took it out and brought it to his desk. He sat there looking at it for a few minutes until his door opened and his brother Kankuro walked in and with a serious tune said, Cage-sama, we need to talk. Gaara nodded without taking his eyes off the bottle. It was rare his older brother used his official title. He only ever said it on business to other villages or in very serious matters. What is it, Kankuro? It's about what happened in Konoha. Gaara's eyes narrowed. I see. As Kankuro sat down, he finally noticed the bottle his brother was staring at. What is it? This it is Wind County spiced wine. It's made with the scorched grapes by Wind Temple monks. It's worth a small fortune. Are you going to drink it? No. Then why is it out? This bottle was supposed to be a gift for Naruto. Naruto? For when he became Hokage, I was going to bring it to him and have a celebrity drink. As you know, I very rarely drink, so this bottle was for that very special occasion. Now it will just be a reminder of a dream that will never become reality. Kankuro looked down sadly. His brother's voice remained the same, but he knew the underlying message. Gaara, I'm sorry. Naruto was a good man and friend, and I wish I wasn't the one to say this, but we have to remain allies with Konoha. Gaara shot up from his chair and yelled, those bastards betrayed and murdered Naruto. Why must I let that go unpunished? Gaara screamed at Kankuro, who remained calm. Because you're the Cage of Tsunade now, Gaara. This is a political job as much as it is a military one. When we attacked Konoha 3 years ago, we lost far too many ninja. Konoha was willing to sign another alliance with us, and we need their military backing as well as their resources to survive, and we can't let a personal vendetta get in the way of that. You know this, Gaara. Naruto is gone, but in the end he was one ninja. In the grand scheme of things, he's not worth losing our village over. It was a mistake, yes, but they were manipulated by Danzo, who's dead now, just as we were once manipulated manipulated by Orochimaru. You have to understand that. Gaara was still angry. Don't think for a moment that I don't realize this, brother. I've gone over the numbers. If we don't remain allies it could escalate it to a war. They're afraid of more enemies, but what can I do? Just to let something like this slide will make us look weak. Gaara said, unsure, but Kankuro looked at his little brother and leader that he'd follow into hell without being asked. Konoha is going to want to resign another alliance with us out of desperation and to assurance that the old one won't be broken. That gives us the window of opportunity to make some demands yet supply the same things we already brought to the table in return. It will take a while for them to realize this, so we have time to get our facts straight. Then we can have a non-hostility agreement with them. To say Gaara was surprised at Kankuro's diplomacy was an understatement. How do you know all this? Kankuro gave Gaara a sad smile. When father was trying to make you into a weapon, he trained Tamari and I in diplomacy and negotiations. We've had teachers just for that since as long as I can remember. I believe we were supposed to hold your leech when he died and one of us was supposed to the next cage, but all things considered, Gaara, I'm happy it's you. You deserve this more than anyone and we will always have your back. Gaara smiled at his brother but then needed to ask, how is Tamari holding up? Kankuro frowned. She's not happy with Konoha Shikamaru, especially she thought he was smarter than this, but she's more worried about you. Gaara nodded. I'll see her after I finish some paperwork. It will distract me for the time being from current events. Kankuro looked at him. No, you two need each other right now. Go, I'll cover for you. Is that an order to your cage? If it needs to be, it's an order from your big brother. Very well, think you can handle it. It's not known as the cage's madness for nothing. I'll be fine. Gaara walked to the door. Suit yourself. As he walked out, Kankuro waited for the door to close and give it another minute before he smirked and summed clones of himself that got to work while he went to take a nap. Over the cures of the last 10 years, Konohagakure has seen war. 5 years ago, Iwagakure tried to attack Tsunade on a diplomatic assignment to said village. Her and Jiraiya, along with their bodyguards Shikamaru and Kiba, managed to escape by killing their way out. It was war after that. Konoha, with the aid of Tsunagakure, won the war and kept up the name of the strongest village of the 5 great villages, but it survived only by a thread. Since then the village has been accepting contracts that have not been very appealing to the Hokage, and on occasion thanked herself for allowing to bring back the root organization, as they personally didn't care about or needed money, and allowed it to go into the village. And given some of the requirements of the jobs, the emotionally void ninjas were the only ones capable of completing them. The only other source of income was the backing of the Fire Daimyo, who was rather keen on keeping Konoha the strongest village, even if he was at the same time sad for the death of the Yellow Flash's son. He took it personally as he grew to respect the poor boy's father and D to C-ranked missions, which don't really need anything like trained Ambu or Jonin. Tsunagakure's cage. Gaara, now 26, got some satisfaction in seeing Konoha get knocked down a peg. Learning much about the art of diplomacy from his siblings, he managed to get the support of Kirigakure's new Mizukage Mai, who was impressed by her fellow red-headed cage enough to sign an alliance. It was enough for Tsunagakure to take Iwagakure's place as the third great village, followed by Kirigakure with Iwagakure for last place, but Kumogakure was still in 2nd and Konoha in 1st, but still Gaara's village has never been better. Konoha, present day. The date October 10th has had a long terrible history in the village, from the Kyuubi attack that resulted in the death of the 4th Hokage and his wife Kushina to the birthday of Naruto Uzumaki and the beginning of almost 2 decades of torment for the boy. Indeed, October 10th is a staple of Konoha's history as a cursed day. The annual festival and memorial was on its way. The festival was for the Kyuubi attack and the memorial was for Naruto Uzumaki after his heritage was revealed to the world. There were many who wanted to make peace with what they have done to the child that saved the village, only to be mistreated by the very people he saved. Others unbelievably still didn't believe it, that said it was Danzo's way of getting back at the village, or that maybe he himself was being manipulated by the Kyuubi into doing the things he did. Naruto's grave was routinely desecrated by these people and mended by others. It caused quite a bit of infighting between the village. On this day of October 10th, the Hokage would get a protection contract for the devil himself. The Hokage's office. Tsunade just ordered some Ambu to arrest some anti-Naruto and pro-Naruto protesters. When Shizune came in, she looked at the Hokage with a little shock and confusion in her eyes, but talked to her as calmly as she could. Hokage-sama, there is someone here to see you. Tsunade looked up from her work and noticed the look in Shizune's eyes. What's wrong? Who is it? I don't know, but a daimyo apparently sent him. He's looking to hire Konoha for protection. Tsunade looked at her longtime assistant and said, send him in. Shizune nodded and waved the person and his guards in and bowed to him and closed the door. At first glance the Hokage took an instant dislike of him. The person in question was a rather young-looking man in his mid-20s. He had short jet black hair and same-colored goatee and mustache, giving him an older look. He had green eyes that seemed to have a lot malicious about them and a grin on his face that told Tsunade he thought he was better than everyone and wasn't afraid to back it up. He wore a green and black Victorian-styled trench coat over a black dress shirt and green vest and tie, black pants and boots that reached tightly up to his shins. On his head was a green stove-top hat with a black loop around it, and around his waist was a green sash with black outlines, the symbols on it. The first she didn't recognize it was a clawed right hand, but the second symbol was for the land of steel trees. It was tied neatly on his right hand side, hanging freely down to his knee, and in his right hand he was holding an black cane with a silver skulled pummel she suspected had a hidden blade. He walked around to the Hokage's office and stopped at the pictures of the past Hokage and was staring intently at the fourth's photo. His bodyguards accompanying him wore regular black suits with matching dress shirts and boots, but with green ties and belts, black top hats with green loops, and on their belts were daggers, and in their jackets Tsunade spotted kunai holsters. She had very serious doubts that any of the four bodyguards knew ninjutsu or jijutsu, but they were most likely taijutsu experts, and the guy they were protecting was definitely a master of the trade. Tsunade wanted to be careful. She didn't like him, but Konoha needed funds. Tsunade looked at the man and said, "Welcome to Konohagakure, mister?" He didn't bother to look at the Hokage and instead continued to look at the Hokage pictures on the wall. "You can call me Green," he said. "It's an obvious fake name, but I'll humor you. What's the job?" "In sulfur monosulfide rank protection mission for myself. Here's the list of the shinobi I require and the price I'm willing to pay per head." One of his men gave Tsunade the paper. She looked at the list and her eyes widened. Green wanted the now Konoha 10 with Kakashi and Jiraiya and Sasuke and the money for each of them. He couldn't be serious, and a sulfur monosulfide rank protection mission is reserved for royalty during times of war, not for regular people unless they're extremely rich, and given he's offering 10,000 feet 000 ryo per shinobi on the list, Tsunade couldn't back down. "Although your offer for Konoha's protection is a great and generous one, but I have a couple of things you and I need to talk about first." Green looked at the Hokage. "I get it, you need to see the money in advance." He snapped his fingers and another four men with matching clothes as his bodyguards came through the door with briefcases and opened them. Inside was 280 million ryo in cash. With that money Konoha would be debt-free for a good long time. Tsunade looked at him calmly, even though inside she was amazed. "Seeing the money is one thing, yes, but it's about some of the people on this list. Why them?" Green smiled. "I have an assassin after me, and I'd feel a whole lot safer with one of the legendary Sannin, a student of Orochimaru, the only living student of your fourth Hokage, and the Kyuubi killers." Tsunade didn't like that last part. "The name Kyuubi killers should never be used in my presence." The smile didn't leave Green's face. "Would you have preferred the Traitor 11? Green said with a larger smile at the Hokage's irritation. "Nether. Look, it doesn't matter to me what you call them, doesn't change the fact I want them. Can you supply the people I want or not? That is one of the things I would like to talk to you about." "I'm all ears." "Well, in regards to, she retired from her shinobi duties 4 years ago and is now head doctor at Konoha General Hospital. Jiraiya is needed on a regular basis as the Hokage advisor, and Hinata Hyuga is a clan head. None of them can be sent out, but I can get you some of our top Anbutu." "No," Green said, cutting her off. "I know what I want, Tsunade Senju. If money is the issue, I can double it for these three, but I want the people on that list, no more, no less, or none at all," he ended with a serious tone. Tsunade knows the village needs funds, but she really wanted to beat this man to death. "You're not used to not getting what you want, are you?" "I was used to it for a long time, Hokage, right up until I started taking what I wanted." Tsunade sighed. "If you would be so kind, I'll see what I can do to get them to join. 3 days is all I ask." Green walked to the door and smiled at Tsunade. "Then that's all the time you have, Hokage. Just give me results and the end of it." One of Green's men opened the door for him when he stopped. "By the way, where can I find the Uzumaki's grave?" Tsunade openly glared at him. "Why do you want to know that?" "Just wondering what all the hubbub is about. People here seems to miss or hate him, even his killers," Green said, looking more innocent than before, but Tsunade didn't buy it for a moment but said, "In Konoha Cemetery, Shinobi Sector, common area." Green smiled a humorous smile. "Even in death he still can't be near his parents." chuckling at Tsunade that the thought he walked out. Tsunade looked at the door wide-eyed and angry, then saddened. Naruto's heritage was common knowledge now, but his grave was in the area for the common shinobi. That particular area was for shinobi who were orphans or clanless, instead of being buried in the Hokage sector where the Hokages and their immediate family go, where his father and mother are. But due to the council not seeing eye to eye, Naruto was put in the common area as what was supposed to be a happy medium for those who wanted him buried in a Konoha grave and those who didn't want him buried in Konoha at all. Konoha Cemetery. Flowers were tossed on a grave. It was marked with, "Here lies Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze of Konoha, a shinobi comrade and friend, a true hero everywhere he went." The man known as Green stared at the grave in amusement, looking at the flowers already placed and the graffiti calling Naruto a demon bastard, and, "I'm glad you're dead, filth." As he was watching, one of his men was apologizing to him. Apparently one of his places was attacked and a lot of his men are now dead. "It appears he's coming, sir. What should we do?" "Which place this time?" Green said calmly and really uncaring given the news. "One of your narcotics labs in the Blaze Village, sir." "Well, that's about 4 days if you run non-stop, so no worries, we'll be gone by then." "Maybe." "Maybe, sir?" "Yes, maybe. I am rather enjoying it here, and besides I doubt even he would come attack me in the middle of Konoha." "Sir, with all due respect, he's—" A look from Green shut him up, then he bowed. "Forgive me, sir." "Don't mention it. I get it, you're a little scared of our friend, what with him trying to kill us and all, but don't worry, it's all under control like always." Green gave the man a reassuring smile, but he found it more frightening than anything. At Konoha General Hospital, Sakura Hiruno's office. Sakura was sitting down at her desk drinking sake, an unfortunate bad habit she got from her mentor, half-handedly looking over medical paperwork but really thinking about the old days in Team 7. She hated the festival. Every time it came she'd work a double shift to take her mind off of it, and with the constant fights that happened between the anti and pro Naruto leagues, the hospital was never short on staff to have something to do. In her musings of the past, she failed to notice the knock at her door till it got louder. She looked at the door, hid her drink and said, "Come in." The door opened to reveal Tsunade. Sakura put her drink back on her desk and filled another glass. "Tsunade-sama," Tsunade said with a warm smile. "How have you been?" Sakura leaned back in her chair and took a sip of her drink. Tsunade looked at her. "That good, eh? I guess you've been overworking as usual?" Tsunade ended with a sigh. "What's this about, Tsunade-sama? We haven't gotten together in a while, and you know I don't like being bothered during the festival time." Tsunade knew all too well Sakura's feelings about the festival. She still hasn't forgiven herself or Tsunade about the Naruto incident. Tsunade gave Sakura an apologetic look. "Sakura, this is going to be hard to ask, but I need you to return to active duty." "As a shinobi?" Tsunade flinched at the 1,000-yard stare Sakura gave her. "What was that, Hokage-sama?" Tsunade gave her a sympathetic look. "We have a client going by Green. He is paying for a sulfur monosulfide rank protection contract with Konoha, but he wants Jiraiya, Sasuke and Kakashi and the Konoha 10 as a whole, you included. If he doesn't get all of you, he'll straight up cancel the whole thing." "Sakura, Konoha needs the funding, and what he's offering we can't ignore. I wouldn't come to you if it wasn't this important." Sakura was angry. She had retired from the shinobi life after the war was over and has spent the last 4 years healing the people of Konoha and trying her best to get over her personal demons. She worked her way to being head doctor and surgeon. To ask this now, she looked at Tsunade. "Why me? Why can't he get some else?" Sakura yelled in anger. "I'm sorry, Sakura, but Konoha must come first, and this you must understand, that sacrifices have to be made in order for the village's survival." Sakura glared at Tsunade. "Sounds like something Danzo would say." "That's not fair, Sakura. Neither is this, Tsunade. After everything that happened between us, you would take away everything I've worked hard for. How do you even know he's on the up and up?" Tsunade grabbed a glass Sakura poured earlier and chugged it. When she was done, she looked at Sakura. "He showed me the money he's offering, 10 million each, that's 280 million in total, and he even said he'd pay double for you, Jiraiya and Hinata. Do you understand what we could do with that money, Sakura?" Sakura gave questionable look. "Still sulfur monosulfide rank protection. At that price, who or what is he running from?" "I don't know. I have 3 days to get you 3 to join, then we can get all the information and make a decision." "A decision that appears to have already been made, which is why I'm being forced back to active duty." "Oh, I'm sorry being asked." Sakura sighed. "Look, I know Konoha is in a bad place right now. I understand that much, Hokage-sama, but it's taken me years of non-stop work to get here. It wasn't just your training, it was my own. Well, now you want me to throw it out the window. How can you make up for that?" Tsunade was a little annoyed now. Look what happened with Naruto and the war is something that if given the chance I would change in a heartbeat, but I can't. All I can do is try to be the leader of this village, and right now it needs the money. I'm trying to keep any more wars from happening. Don't you dare think for a moment that you're the only one suffering. Sakura Haruno. Sakura glared at Tsunade. She long since lost her fear of the Hokage's legendary anger. I had to kill my friend, my comrade, under your order, an order you didn't fully look into. I had to stop a whole armada of Iwa ninja to protect the MASH base I was at, and still had to deal with the death of my patients and staff because of the scouts that came from behind when reinforcements didn't arrive, because some royal assholes didn't see the point of spending the resources for the sick and dying, and you did nothing to stop that from happening. Sakura's glare intensified. So don't tell me I can't complain when you come into my office to ask me to be a shinobi again to make some rich asshole happy. Tsunade understood where Sakura was coming from. Since Naruto's death, Tsunade could barely hold her own in the Hokage chair. The war with Iwagakure didn't help either. Sakura, I have known suffering long before you were even born. I lost my brother, lover, and drive to be the best. She looked at her former apprentice, sadness unhidden. Naruto was the only person that was able to convince me to come back to Konoha and take up the mantle I hated so much. Tears fell from her eyes with every word. When I saw Naruto, I saw Naoki, I saw the son I never had or deserved to have. When I issued that order, I felt like not only was I killing Naruto, my only true successor and family next to Jiraiya, but the last piece of my soul. I keep the cage position and remain sober while doing it as my own punishment for the crime I have committed to such a good person that should have replaced me long ago. As angry as Sakura was with Tsunade, she was still sympathetic. I don't like this, but I'll join as the medic, but after this I'm done for good and you will never come to me like this again. Tsunade nodded. She left without saying a word while Sakura poured another drink, not really knowing which emotion to feel right now. Jiraiya, Tsunade's comrade and former teammate of Team Hiruzen. The official story is that he's the Hokage's advisor and spymaster of Konohagakure. In a way it's true, Jiraiya is still the spymaster, but times have been tough on him since Naruto's death. He drinks more than Tsunade ever did, he's quicker to anger, and he doesn't even do his research anymore, to which Tsunade actually missed. She didn't like it, but at least it still showed that some small part of him was still alive. She's been having him take therapy, but it hasn't helped at all. Right now he's getting plastered at one of Konoha's shinobi-only bars with all others in the room, giving the legendary Sannin a wide berth, all except the one across the table from Jiraiya. It was Anko Mitarashi, the former student and only survivor of Team Orochimaru and third in command of T, and I wasn't one to run from anything, especially a drink. She sat there quietly, eyes locked on Jiraiya. It annoyed the Sannin to no end. He looked at her. What do you want, Anko? Jiraiya asked. Anko remained silent and had a sip of her drink. Everyone else is smart enough to leave me alone, why not you? Jiraiya said angrily. It's not about being smart, it's about being scared of you, old man. What? I know fear, I've experienced it because of that bastard teammate of yours, and I use it every day at work, and I am feared by reputation alone. I'm no Sannin, but I can be more scary than you could ever be. She stood up and whispers to Jiraiya. I'm just making sure we don't have another Orochimaru. With that she left, walking past Tsunade, who was coming in. She walked over to a stunned Jiraiya and sat down at his booth and said, How have you been, Jiraiya? Tsunade mentally cursed herself for that when he looked at her. What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy drinking? The years have not been good to Jiraiya. He had dark circles under his bloodshot eyes from lack of sleep due to a rescuing dream of Naruto and his father and mother's anger with him. He smelled of booze. His muscle tone has gotten thinner. His spiked hair got sticking and dirty due to lack of bathing, and depression was all too clear in his face. It broke his oldest friend's heart. Jiraiya looked at Tsunade, waiting for a response till. We have a new client going by green. Jiraiya looked at her, puzzled. Whoa, why should I care? Because he's paying for a sulfur monosulfide rack protection mission at Demio, precise 10 million per head. The money did interest Jiraiya. That's a lot, but still, what does it have to do with me? I've seen the money, but I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. Jiraiya smirking a little. You'd throw people pretty far, Tsunade. She glared at him. He want Naruto's assassins as bodyguards, you including. That got Jiraiya angry. What, why us? I don't know, I have Ambu following him around. I don't know what he's planning or who he's running from. I need you to keep tabs on him. Dig something up if you can before we take the mission. I don't want to, but Konoha needs money. Jiraiya lowered his head. I've done so much for Konoha Tsunade, maybe too much. I lost my student because I wasn't there. Because of Konoha I lost the woman I thought of as a daughter-in-law. Because of Konoha I couldn't even be there for my godson because I had a spy network to look after. For Konoha I brought back my oldest friend to take up a position she despises because Konoha needed a leader, and with all that, after I just was finally thinking I could be the godfather I should have been for 13 years, I had to kill my godson because of Konoha's bigotry and the suspicion of a psychopath. He poured another drink. Everything I've lost for this village. I understand now why you didn't want to come back and why you punished yourself now. A tear ran down his eye. I'm sorry Tsunade, I'm so sorry. With a look from there, Hokage all shinobi left the bar and the bartender walked over to the booth, dropped off a bottle and 2 glasses and locked the door of the bar and left to give them some privacy. In the Konoha Memorial Festival, Asuma and Kurenai were walking around checking out the sights. As they were, Asuma noticed something. It was the young man known as Green with his guards. Both he and Kurenai saw the Ambu on the roofs watching as he walked nonchalantly with his cane. He passed Asuma. They both turned and looked at each other. They looked down and took note of the sashes around the others' waists. Green looked at Asuma, who did the same. He smiled and winked before leaving. Kurenai looked at Asuma. What was that all about? She said, a little worried. He turned to her. That man, he's a guardian? Asuma said with no room for doubt to a surprised Kurenai. What, how do you know? His sash, it labels him as a guardian of the land of steel trees, means his like me and the 12 shinobi guardians of the Fire Lord. But what's he doing here? Asuma said, lighting a smoke. His kind don't leave their country unless escorting their daimyo, and they don't need bodyguards, which what I assume the guys with him are. We should take this to Tsunade-sama ASAP. Kurenai nodded and they vanished. One of Green's bodyguards walked closer. Sir, I think that guy made you. What should we do? Green continued to walk but said, nothing. It doesn't matter if he knows what I am. The money is all they'll care about in the end. But sir, Green turned to him. Don't argue with me, death sounding in his voice. His guard looked at him, sweat going down his face. Sorry sir. Green stared the man down. Come on, it's a festival and I can use a drink. Those Ambu are starting to annoy me, Green said, knowing full well he was being followed since he left the Hokage office. By the way you're buying, maybe that will shut you up for a while. His guard shivered. Yes sir. One of the other guards walked closer. Sir, we have more reports coming from your spies. They saw him again en route to Konoha. He looked pissed. Green smiled at his men. Sounds like we're in for some good times soon, but still send word to our branch in Sparks Village. See if they can hold him off for a while. You think they can handle it, sir? No, but they were lacking in their payments last week, so might as well let our friend deal with them. Yes sir. Who knows, maybe they'll kill each other, Green chuckled. Though I know it will be pretty one-sided. They'll at least make good meat shields till he gets here. Now let's get those drinks. His men shouted. Yes sir. The Hokage office. Asuma and Kurenai arrived at the Hokage's office, but the only one there was Shizune tidying up the paperwork for tomorrow. She saw the 2 shinobi. Asuma-san, Kurenai-san, what brings you here tonight? Shizune, where is Lady Tsunade? Asuma said. Shizune thought about it for a moment. She is probably getting the people she needs for a mission we got from our new client. Why? Is it a guy wearing a green overcoat and top hat? Yes, what's this about? Asuma-san? Shizune said, starting to get worried. Kurenai spoke. Asuma thinks this guy is a guardian like himself. Asuma was annoyed. I don't think I know he is. After I joined as a shinobi guardian, we did homework on other types of guardians around the nations. This guy is one from the land of steel trees. Shizune was surprised. Are you sure? Asuma, steel tree guardians only leave their land when they intend to kill someone. Asuma nodded, confirming. Kurenai was a little confused. Wait, I thought guardians never leave their daimyo's side and don't go on missions. Again Asuma nodding, saying, that's right, so now you know why I'm confused. Shizune nodded but said, nevertheless he's meeting with the council in 3 days and Tsunade is busy right now. You will have to see her tomorrow. Asuma was not pleased. What, why? Because she is trying to make this deal happen, but my advice is you're going to be representing your clan at the meeting, so make sure everything you say is right. The second day of getting Green's list finished came, and it took all of Tsunade's inner strength to leave Jiraiya in his room where she carried him. She wanted to be there for him, but duty called, so she had to leave. A passed out Jiraiya still mumbling in his sleep, apologizing to the ghosts of his past. Next up, the Hyuga clan head. Hyuga compound training area. Hinata Hyuga was training with her sister after a long morning of politicking with the Hyuga Council over her short reign as clan head. Hinata banned the use of the cage bird seal and was instrumental in turning the main and branch families into one big clan. She wasn't very kind in words with her speech of Get along or get out. It was more for the main branch than anything, but all understood. She also gives a small fortune every year to the Naruto Initiative, a charity to help orphans of war and the abandoned people of the elemental countries to great success, started by a now 21-year-old Inari with the backing of Koyuki Kazana. As Hinata was training, Neji walked up to her. Hinata-sama, Tsunade-sama is here to see you. Hinata stopped and looked at her sister. That's enough for today, Hanabi. Work on straightening out your arm strikes and speed. Naji here will help you. Hanabi nodded as her and Neji walked to the training dummies. In the Hyuga tea house, Tsunade was sitting cross-legged on the floor sipping her tea, waiting with 2 down and 1 to go. She hoped beyond hope that Hinata would join with the least complications, but even though she's the Hokage, politics with sending clan heads out on missions is a totally different thing. As she waited, thoughts have entered her head. She didn't like him one bit, and whoever was after him was probably strong and deadly enough for the sulfur monosulfide ranked assignment. A former Akatsuki member? Someone in the bingo book? An entire nation? Green didn't seem like the kind of person to not to piss people off. She'll get to the bottom of it after the meeting. While she was on her way to the Hyugas, she also bumped into Asuma, who told her his finds on Green, making it more strange right now. Getting Green's list was a good way to get him to slip and tell her who he was. The door to the tea house opened, revealing Hinata. She wasn't one for kimonos or fancy dresses. Instead, she wore standard shinobi undergarb with a white coat, not unlike Tsunade's, but the sleeves were tighter around the arms and wrists, and a black strip going down the back with the Hyuga crest in white with the black background. Hinata sat down opposite Tsunade and nodded in respect to her cage. Tsunade-sama, clan head Hinata. Tea was poured in Hinata's cup by a Hyuga member. She picked it up and sipped it. What brings you here today, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade tried to be careful with the words. Konoha has a new client. He's looking to hire us for a sulfur monosulfide ranked protection mission. If I'm not wrong, that is usually reserved for daimyos in times of war. Are we at war? Hinata eyed the Hokage. Not that I know of, but he is rich enough to pay the cost. Could be for who or what's after him is that deadly, or it could be for his status. I honestly don't know, Tsunade said. So you need Neji? Neji and you? That got Hinata's full attention. Pardon me, Hokage-sama? Now Tsunade was really careful when saying, the client goes by Green for now. He wants me to assemble a team of bodyguards he choose, and they are everyone involved in the Naruto incident. Hinata's eyes widened for a split second, then she looked at the Hyugas in the room. Everyone out. They bowed and left. Tell me everything, Tsunade-sama, Hinata said seriously. Don't leave anything you know out. Tsunade talked lightly. For right now we know once everyone from the Naruto incident and that an assassin is after him, but Green already has bodyguards watching him. My guess is they're not trained shinobi, so he wants the extra backup. Hinata didn't seem happy with the lack of information. Don't clients normally have to give more than that for Konoha's help? Tsunade answered honestly. They do right now. The money is the big factor of why I'm trying to get you on board now, but after that Green has to appear in front of the Konoha Council for approval, where he must give us all the information. Hinata was cautious. The shinobi counselors only? Tsunade shook her head. Shinobi and civilian both, because it affects Konoha as a whole considering the rank and prince. Hinata didn't like that one bit. How much is he paying? Tsunade was honest. 10 million ahead and 20 million to get you Jiraiya and Sakura brings the cost to 310 million. Hinata was also honest. Those people won't look at the risk, only the reward. Tsunade agreed and spoke. I know, Hinata, but Konoha needs that money and unfortunately we may have to deal with him. It frustrated Hinata. Did he say why he wants us? Tsunade lowered her head. He said he'd feel safer with the Kyuubi killers with him. That bastard, Hinata said angry. I know, but what can I do to get you to join? Tsunade said, hoping. Thoughts raced around Hinata's head. As a clan head, especially for the Hyugas, one must be prepared for anything. She know all too well a lot of the elders hated having the cage bird seal banned from use on the branch family and would use her absence as a chance to bring it back, and the former branch family would fight for their new freedom. It could be a war of families. She had to consider all options. Normally Neji would watch over things when she was away, but he's going as well, so that leaves one option. In order to make sure my clan continues to run smoothly, I will place you as interim head of the Hyuga clan, Tsunade-sama, and I will join given that 5% of the money is donated to the Naruto initiative. That is non-negotiable. Tsunade spat out her tea. What? Hinata looked at the Hokage. Under Konoha guidelines, if the clan head is away and no one is picked to run things, the Hokage takes control of clan affairs as interim head. I don't like it either, but my control on things would be challenged when I'm away. Tsunade saw the sense, but she had to say, "But really 5%, do you know how much that is?" She shuddered. 15,500,000? Hinata said nonchalantly and continued. "Would you prefer 10%, Hokage-sama?" Tsunade was sweating. "Didn't think so," the Hyuga head said, then her eyes went dark under her lavender hair. "Besides, consider this your chance to regain my full trust. I'm gambling on you, Tsunade, with the safety of my clan." Tsunade understood and nodded. "When's the meeting?" "The day after tomorrow." "Understood, my apologies, but I must attend to other business, Hokage-sama. I will see you at the meeting. If there is anything you need as interim clan head, Hanabi will be your second." With that, Hinata bowed and left her family's tea house while some Hyugas came to respectfully show Tsunade out. Now all she had to do was prepare for the council meeting with Konoha Council Chamber Day of Meeting. Tsunade spent the better part of the night making sure her questions and answers and facts were straightened out so she could counter anything Green sent her way. Something told her he could be a manipulating bastard when he wanted to be, as the council was getting in to order the clan heads with Hinata representing the Hyugas and Asuma for the Sarutobis were ready. The remaining Konoha 10, Sasuke and Kakashi on the side, standing at full attention when the chamber doors opened revealing Green and company. He walked and sat down. No bowing, no respect, no nothing. The council was not pleased. From the moment he entered, the council were not fans. A civilian councillor stood up. It is customary to bow before the council when entering the chamber. Others nodded in full agreement. Green looked at him with piercing green eyes. It sent shivers down their spines before smiling. "My humble apologies, O mighty one," he said sarcastically. "But last I checked, I'm willing to pay a very large sum to Konoha if not angered, so in that regard shouldn't you be bowing to me, so I will?" The councillor was annoyed but sat down to Green's very obvious amusement. The Hokage watched the situation take place before banging her hand on the table. "Make the council come to order." She looked at the client and spoke clearly. "The council has come here today to hear the job presented by it. Is up to us to decide whether or not Konoha should accept it. Understood?" At the council's nodding, she continued. "You came to us with a sulfur monosulfide racked protection mission for yourself and are willing to pay up to 310 million ryo for this. Is that current?" Hearing that amount got people whispering in the chambers even more when Green nodding his yes. "For us to do such a mission we need all the answers. Will you comply to this?" Again Green nodded yes. "First, what is your real name?" "Kamen. Guro Kamen, former guardian and now interim daimyo of the land of steel trees." The now known Kamen said, smiling at the look of the council. "You're an interim daimyo?" Tsunade said, shocked. "Going on about 6 years now," Kamen replied. "What happened to the actual daimyo?" A councilman asked, now more respectfully. "He and his family were found dead, killed by the hands of an assassin with no other heirs. The position fell to the lead guardian, myself," Kamen said nonchalantly. "Where were you during this? As a guardian, especially the head, you should have been with your daimyo at all times," Asuma said, not buying the story, which Kamen caught on to. "Unlike your daimyo, mine liked his family time. He would normally spend this time alone and he wouldn't stand any objections on our part." That's when the assassin stuck. Asuma nodded but still didn't like the answers. Tsunade continued her questioning. "Do you know anything about who's after you?" He nodded. "Do any of you know or remember the taijutsu and assassin master known as the Shade?" Eyes widened from the shinobi council as well as the older civilians. The Shade, that's impossible. He died by Lord Fourth and Lady Kushina's hand back in the Third Shinobi War. One was there," Tsunade said in shock. "If that's true, then how on earth did he train the Guardians of Steel Tree, I wonder?" Kamen said, holding his chin in false thoughtfulness. Kamen looked at the councillors seriously for a moment. "You see, the fight that is in Konoha's history books is false. When the Shade and the Fourth and Kushina fought, it was a draw. Just like Sarutobi was the god of shinobi, the Shade was the god of taijutsu, and just as strong. He could even survive the 8th gate of unlocking. That was the reason why the Yellow Flash and red-haired demon couldn't take him out. He was that powerful, but he allowed people to think he was dead for unknown reasons so he could live a pretty relaxing life in Steel Tree, where he trained the Guardians, myself included, up until his death 6 years ago." Hinata was the one to ask. "If he is dead now, how's he after you?" Kamen looked at her as if she was stupid. "Because this Shade is the one the original passed the name down to before he died, duh." Hinata didn't like his tone. "Care to word that a little more respectfully?" He smiled at Hinata. No, but anyway, the title of shade went to the one who mastered all of the master's skills till he was either equal or above the original. Shikaku Nara took interest and asked, so the person who's chasing you is equal or stronger than Lord Third in his prime in taijutsu? Murmurs went around the chamber when they heard, one of two. Yes, Kamen said, prompting the Nara head to ask, who's the other? Kamen smiled. Me? Inochi looked at Kamen in disbelief. If you're really that strong, why not deal with this yourself? Tsunade bit her lip. She was cursing the Yamanaka in her head for insulting the rich guy's manhood, but Kamen didn't seem to care. It's quite simple actually, I fought him more times than I care to count, but we are even each time. I want to kill him personally, but he's starting to gain allies as he's going along. Asuma asked, then why hire Konoha for protection instead of an assassination mission? Kamen looked at him. Look, he was stupid as well. Because none of your assassins couldn't possibly get the shade. He has to come to you, and when he does I want to be ready. The shinobi counselors understood his reasoning. The shade is a legend even to this day. Anbu and any assassins still try to compete for such a title, and even though he wasn't a member of Konoha, he was one of Guy's taijutsu heroes. Shikaku was wondering something. If I might ask, Lord Fourth and Lady Uzumaki were two of the most powerful shinobi in Konoha history, and I doubt that this shade was planning to fake his death the whole time, and he fought the both of them more than once. If he is as powerful as Lord 3 Ed is, way didn't he just kill them right then and there? That earned the Nara head a glare from the others. Kamen raised his eyebrow. Well, that's the million ryo question. My guess is it was his great deal of respect for Kushina Uzumaki's skill. He always said he wanted to train her. He didn't care for Minato, said he was in the way of one of Konoha's greatest warriors' potential. Shikaku raised his own eyebrow. Lady Uzumaki's potential for what? Kamen answered plainly. Don't know, maybe to be to an even better warrior than she already was. Every time he fought them he noticed Minato was a two-trick pony. Flying Thunder God Rasengan FTG Rasengan over and over. He know each time prediction was one of his self-trained skills. He'd say being predictable means you die. He took a breath. But when it came to Kushina, her skill in swordsmanship and taijutsu appealed to him. For a student that could learn from a master, Kushina had what Minato never did, his respect as a warrior. A civilian counselor stood up angrily. The fourth Hokage was the greatest hero we ever had. How dare you or some good-for-nothing assassin insult him? Kamen gave a smirk. I'm guessing you're one of the counselors that used to send gangs after his son Naruto, was it? For the amount of fanaticism you're currently showing me. That made the counselor wince. Don't forget, your attitude is what killed your greatest hero's son and what could cost you your village, so sit down and shut the fuck up and know your place, because I bet if either Minato or Kushina were alive today they would be more pissed at you than me, Kamen said, smirking. Jiraiya, though angry with Kamen's lack of respect towards his dead student and godson, asked, why was the shade even at Steel Tree when he made a name for himself as a freelance assassin? Kamen smirked, pissing the Sanin off. That would be up to the original shade to answer. It's not like he kept notes. My guess is it was where he chose to retire, and he also trained others. The one after to me is his best student, Kamen said with a frown. Kamen looked at the Hokage board. Have I answered all you questions, Hokage? Will you take the job or not? Tsunade bit her lip but said, the last thing is, where are you going and how long will it be? Kamen thought about it. Back to Steel Tree, and for as long as it take to get the shade? Tsunade nodded. Okay, your shinobi escort will be waiting for you at the front gates 6 sharp. Kamen nodded. Excellent. He turned to his men and they left the briefcases on the table as he them left, not before saying to his new bodyguards. Tsubasa said, everyone dismissed. Later at the Akamichi restaurant, the Konoha 10 were sitting at their usual booth. Choji cooked everyone's favorite dishes and began to eat. I hate our new client already, Shikamaru said. Everyone nodded. There is something about him I don't trust either. He seems like he would rather kill than talk, Neji said. I don't know, but I'm surprised. He is supposed to be a guardian like Asuma-sensei. Should we be worried? Ino asked. I'm more worried about this shade guy chasing him, especially if he is as strong as the third. Kiba said, the god of taijutsu, incredible. I want to meet him and test myself against him. Lee said in all seriousness. Are you crazy, Lee? He'd kill you. Tenten said, angry. At least it would be an interesting fight, Lee countered. Ever since the Naruto incident, Lee has punished himself with constant missions training and even joined Sasuke's squad. Lee has a profound hatred for the Uchiha but follows orders to the letter. He has also been more realistic about shinobi life and is a stone-cold killer when he has to be, and more calm and detached from his friends. Nevertheless, we expected the contract, we had to deal with it no matter how troublesome it is, Shikamaru said, taking a sip of his drink. Sakura, however, had her own thoughts. Does it not make you wonder why he wants everyone responsible for Naruto's death? He was blatant about it too. Kida answered with, who knows, maybe he likes the Kyuubi killer angle. Lee gave Kida an annoyed look and said, or the traitor 11 inches that made them lower their head. They ate their meals slowly, thinking about tomorrow. At the Red Leaf Shinobi Bar, Sasuke, Kakashi and Jiraiya sat at their booth talking about the goings-on around the village and about their new client. So Guro Kamen is a guardian like Asuma? That interesting, Sasuke said, sipping his drink. It's not as important as this shade person that after him Minato-sensei used to tell horror stories about him. If you were on his list, nothing could stop him from getting you. Kakashi added, a little worried. Shade was a prick, plain and simple, Jiraiya said on his third drink to his companions first. But that didn't change the fact he was a strong one for someone who doesn't use jutsus, Kakashi replied. Jiraiya nodded at that and said begrudgingly, I did fight him myself a handful of times. He was able to counter everything I threw at him. He then added, but what do you expect from Hanzo, the salamander's old mentor? That made the other two men's eyes widen. But Hanzo is from a megacure and the shade is from steel trees. Why would he train Hanzo? Kakashi said, astounded. I doubt the shade was originally from steel trees, but I guess he saw something in Hanzo that I saw in those 3 kids I trained from there. Maybe it's something the rain there that fucks with people. I don't know. Sasuke had to ask. Hanzo was a shinobi, but you said shade wasn't. How did he train Hanzo? Hanzo was a samurai before he became a shinobi. I figured shade trained Hanzo before he made the transition from one to the other, but might have helped him with his stealth skills afterward. Shade may not have been a samurai, but he knew his weapons. The two nodded. It made sense, kind of. Still, the way everyone talks about him, you'd think he was the boogeyman, Sasuke said. We only found out that he was alive after all this time. Like I said before, he may have been in Steel Tree, but I doubt he was born there. Even Kamen said it was his retirement spot. Jiraiya signed and they continued. And to make matters worse, this new guy is supposed to be stronger. Shade wouldn't just pick anyone to carry his name. Jiraiya was visibly worried at that. Sasuke wasn't as brash and egotistical as he used to be, but still said, we have 2 Sharingan users and a Sannin. How could he beat that? He smirked, but Jiraiya looked at the boy in his eyes and said, a Sannin he's beaten back when I was in my prime, and Shade has killed dozens of Uchiha more than once, and with you 2 together is only equals 1 full set. Saying it as brutally honest as possible. Sasuke didn't like hearing that, but let it go. No use in fighting Jiraiya on that, but he stood up. I'm going home. I'll update the men before the client gets there in the morning. He left without another word. The new and spooky information is going to bother him the rest of the night. That was a bit harsh, Jiraiya. Bid me, Cyclops. The day was nice, the sun just barely over the great Hokage monument. The time 5:45. The shinobi that would accompany Guro Kamen appeared to find their client waiting for them. To their surprise, Kamen looked at the escort with a smile. To the front was Jiraiya, a lot cleaner because of Tsunade's orders. He still looked like hell, but clean, wearing his usual attire. Kakashi, no book in his hand, not looking any better when he got the order from Tsunade for this mission. It surprised him to say the least. His self-hated for his part in the Naruto incident made him unfit for D-ranked missions, let alone high-priority escort, but he did want to get out of Konoha for a while. He spent the better part of his time in isolation from everyone, the ghost of his past always hunting him. Sasuke Uchiha. He now wear all black Ambu attire with an Ibiki-style jacket and eye patch covering the horizontal scar on his removed right eye. Sasuke has proven his loyalty to Konoha, even going so far as to keep his tracker seal he swear on his Uchiha name to rectify his mistakes of the past, and had since earned the respect of his comrades of his team, the Raven Corps, a hard-hitting team of Kiba and Akamaru, Rock Lee and Tenten. When they enter a village, no one tries to piss them off, but still keeps his same traits. The only person he seems to want to talk to was his ex-teammate and sensei. He has also held up his search for Itachi until Konoha was back at tip-top shape. Sakura hasn't given Sasuke the time of day for 10 long years for this mission. She had her professional and cold domineer. She wear classic Jonin attire with a red cross on the right arm and a first aid kit with scalpels on her back waist. This was her get it done and go home type of attitude she had since the end of the Fourth War. Hinata wore a Jonin uniform with the Hyuga symbol on the back, hair in a ponytail standing to attention, back straight, chin up, a stance befitting of a clan head. Gone was her timid self, now replaced with a person who had respect without needing to ask. Rock Lee had done away with the green tights and orange leg warmers he had as a sign to mark his place in Team Guy, and had on black Ambu gear, a turtle-style Ambu mask, on a symbolic respect for his former sensei, who would have eagerly given Lee his contract with the very summoning beast if Lee had the chakra needed to summon them. He hadn't spoken a word to many his old comrades in a long time. On his plate was the Raven Core symbol. He didn't like Sasuke but followed his orders, and since his departure from Team Gue he studied as many martial arts as he could. Rock Lee was now a true taijutsu master. Shikamaru wear his Ambu captain gear on his right arm was his team symbol for his Shadow Stick unit, a team built of Shino Ino Choji Neji aka Konoha's patients. This team was a strategic-based assassination corps able to silently track, kill and stage the like an accident or betrayal, leaving Konogakure unnoticed. His mask was a stag, the Nara's guardian animal, roped on his waist, and a pair of trench knives from Asuma he carries with pride. He stays true to his family's calm and collected personality, especially for strategies, but is far from lazy these days. It has been said if the Naras weren't lazy they'd rule the world, and Shikamaru was the reason why they think that he even outranks Sasuke on most missions, to which the Uchiha will personally attest to Shikamaru being the better choice. Shino was in Ambu gar with his beetle mask and a heavy jacket. Tenten had a faceless mask with no color except the two swords in an regular Ambu uniform and on the forehead in black. She also had a collapsible spar on her back and several scrolls holsters to her sides and lower back. Kiba had a dog mask and clawed gauntlets with his Ambu tracker outfit. Choji was wearing a Shadow Strike uniform and a large collapsible hammer holstered to his side he got from the war. His mask was a bull. He wasn't as big as he once was but wasn't trim either from what he lost in weight he made up in speed. Ino had an Ambu uniform with an Enko-style jacket, though her was a dark purple. Her mask was a cobra like her T and I Poison's mentor. Neji had on an owl mask so no one saw his Byakugan active to scan Kamen, where he found a hidden blade in his cane, 2 daggers behind his back, hilts down, and brass knuckles in his sleeves with a spring lunge for quick use, multiple flat throwing knives, and what really caught Neji's eye, a ring on Kamen's right middle finger that seemed to have stored chakra in it, and a seal on the silver skull of the cane that Neji didn't know about. He would have to tell Jiraiya about it. As the elite of Konogakure were standing to attention, Shikamaru, Sasuke and Hinata were coming up with a plan of action with the client. The team will be a 3-leader group of Shikamaru as the main, Sasuke as the second, Hinata as the third. Jiraiya and Kakashi were to be the last line of defense for the client to be by his side at all times. Both hated the idea but both understood as well it hurt Tsunade to send these two out on a mission, but hoped time away from Konoha and away from Naruto's grave could heal them just a little. As Kamen watched the three interact, he noticed something from the corner of his eye, something creeping around the shadows. He grinned and looked to his escort, saying, "If we are heading out, I have an order for you." The 3 leaders looked at him. Shikamaru was the one to say, "And what would that be, Kamen-san?" Kamen looked at the rest. Out the escort. "Tell your men to remove those stupid fucking masks. I want to see their faces." Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "Why would you want that?" he said in an annoyed tone. "I want to see what the traitor 10 look like," Kamen said with a smile and angered all who heard. "I wouldn't say that name again, Guro," Hinata said angrily. "Then try something to keep me from saying it, Hyuga," was Kamen's response. Not wanting this to get any further, Kiba removed his mask. When the others saw this, they did the same. Kamen saw this. A wide smile appeared on his face. Knowing he got his way, he started to pass back and forth down the line of shinobi. "So this is the so-called legendary Kyuubi killers. Must say you all don't look like much," he said, a little disappointed. "Hard to believe you lot killed the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi." But then again his back was turned. "That was just a low blow to all of them," Kiba shouted. "I don't care if he's a client or how much is paying this asshole going down." Kiba was about ready to attack when he froze. He fell to his knees and couldn't breathe. Everyone was worried. There was a strang needle in his shoulder. Sakura went fast to remove it until a knife was thrown at Kamen. Had a swipe of Sasuke's katana blocked it. His one good eye on Kamen, who was smiling unaffectedly at the attempt on his life. The shocked crew of shinobi scattered. Kakashi and Jiraiya jumped in front of Kamen, kunai in hand and ready to use. Tenten, Lee, Shikamaru and Hinata were standing to the left of the ally Choji, Sasuke and Shino to the right in their battle stances. Sakura was checking Kiba, Ino covering them. The dark ally showed nothing. Tenten yelled, "Come out and face us, coward." Nothing came as a response until Jiraiya's senses kicked in. He turned around at time to block a kick strong enough to send him to the ground. Any slower he'd be dead. The assassin pulled out a blade and swung it to the still motionless Kamen, but Kakashi stopped him just in time. Locking blades, Sasuke jumped in to stab the assassin with his sword, only for the assassin to block with another dagger. Without warning, he ducked and leg swiped both to the ground. It surprised all who saw it. Nobody should be able to get the best of the Sharingan users and Sannin so easily. The assassin knew as the shade wasn't done when Kakashi and Sasuke hit the ground. He brought his daggers up in the air to bring down to stab the two, but wasn't allowed to as he had to backflip over Tenten, who was about to impale him with her spear. When his feet touched the ground, Shade charged his shoulder, tackling her hard to the ground. The next where the two Hyuga both the fighting stance of their family. Shade turned to them, giving everyone a good look as he stood up straight, blade in hand. The Shade was standing straight, right side facing away from the two Hyuga, his knife in his right hand, blade underhanded, his left hand resting on the hilt of its holstered twin thumb and index touching the handle, ready to use. The Shade wore lightweight black leather armor, black leather gloves with forest green arm protectors that were leather, and metal black leather boots with green leg protectors that were the same style as his arm ones. On his head was a leather hood that seemed to mold around his head and a green cloth covering the lower part of his face. What shocked the Hyugas was their Byakugan couldn't see through the mask. There was a seal invisible to the naked eye, preventing them from seeing his face. On his right index finger was a ring much like Kamen's with the same weird chakra held in it that only the Hyuga could see. His waist and in his hand were two green and silver Bowie knives. They looked like they were for a military stealth operation, with a green metal handle with silver-looking hand guard. The blade itself was perfect, 8 inches long, 2 inches wide, with a 4 inches handle. One side was a sharp cutting side while the other was serrated, most likely for getting through barbed wires quickly and quietly. Tenten would be drooling if they weren't being used to try and kill her and her friends, but what got their attention more was the green sash that looked much like Kamen's own, and his ice-cold blue eyes. They looked like they could freeze the fires of hell itself. It was a frightening sight to behold. The Shade himself standing there watching like the green-clad Grim Reaper, waiting for them to come and face their death. Hinata and Neji tensed under the glare of the Shade, but Hinata won't allow that to stop her. "You stand here in Konogakure attacking our friends and client. How dare you show such disrespect?" The Shade didn't respond as Hinata continued, "You stand against the strongest the Hyuga have to offer. Surrender or die." Shade stared at her for a moment before turning with a high spin kick, a blocked Lee dynamic entree, the quiet version he tried to do while Hinata had him distracted. The kick hit Lee's foot, throwing him off balance in the air, hitting the ground hard where he was about to receive an axe kick. He rolled out of the way to catch his breath. Shade turned back to the Hyuga, cracking his neck as a sign he'll go down fighting. With a glance to Neji, the head and second in command of the Hyuga clan, changed chakra-enhanced plums flying towards the unfazed assassin. The combo the cousins were sending his way were not connecting. To their surprise, the Shade didn't even seem like he was trying. The dodging seems expertly and specially planned for the Hyuga Gentile palm. It wasn't till Neji's next strike that the Shade stabbed Neji's open palm, going right through his hand with his knife, stopping his attacks and grabbing Hinata's wrist, twisting it and putting his left foot on the back of her leg, forcing her to the ground and yanking the blade from Neji's hand and brought to her neck. That the fighting stopped from the shock and worry of their comrades. Shade continued to twist her wrist till there was a sickening popping sound. Hinata let a grunt of pain but didn't scream or move, with the knife still very much preset against her neck, proving his point that he was not to be fucked with. A little blood was seen leaking from the spot he was cutting her from his cold blue eyes, ever watching their movements. Sakura was watching the display with fury in her eyes. She considered Hinata to be one of the best Kinochi Konoha had, and she had a great deal of respect for Hinata's medical skill. When Hinata discovered that the Byakugan and the Hyuga style made them excellent doctors, the Byakugan, if used right, was able to see things like tumors and other internal sickness, and the Hyuga's style was great for surgery. Their natural ability when it came to their wrist work: give Hinata a scalpel, she could make it dance for you in a life-saving way. And now this bastard, this good-for-nothing hitman, may have destroyed that. Ino, Sakura whispered. It got Ino's attention, but she didn't turn, keeping all focus on Shade. "We only get one chance at this." Sakura picked up a pebble. Ino know what it meant. Sasuke noticed as well. Kiba's eyes were a furious blood red. This bastard was hurting one of his pack, Hinata no less. He was going to tear this fucker apart before killing him. The thing he was feeling took a far back seat to this, claws digging into the ground, a ballistic look on his face, not knowing Sakura's plan. Kiba shouted, "Let go of her, you bastard." That got Shade's attention when Sakura's chakra-enhanced fingers flicked the pebble, making it fly with speeds of a bullet with the same amount of deadly force. Shade moved his head slightly, dodging the projectile, but when he looked at Ino, the Shade flinched and Ino fell but was caught by Sakura. "Ino, did you get him?" The thumbs up by the assassin confirmed it. Sasuke ran and grabbed the arms as they were already put behind the back of Shade in wait to be cuffed when Ino awoke, screaming, holding her hand in a phantom pain. Sasuke looked at her, failing to see Shade's head butting him with the back of his head to Sasuke's face, then grabbed the knife from his left holster and was about to stab Sasuke. He turned to the right and dodged the attack, but Shade turned and slashed, cutting his chest. Somewhere at Konoha, while the fighting was happening, Anbu were charging to the battle but trailing behind and very angry. Hokage, after having to deal with Kamen, then dealing with getting a retired shinobi, a clan head, and her former teammate on board with the mission, and unable to get any sleep since she really wanted to kill someone. Whoever is attacking her village will have hell to pay. There was so much chakra in her legs, the force of her jumping was destroying rooftops. At the gates of Konoha, the Konoha 11, Kakashi and Jiraiya have had enough of this. Kamen, on the other hand, was sitting at a table of a nearby bar his men broke into and have been pouring him drinks while he watched the show, unblinkingly enjoying himself. They didn't know what to do. Ino, phantom pain was still stinging her. Hinata's wrist was broken. Neji's hand had a hole in the middle of it, and Sasuke had bloody nose and a cut across his chest, but he could still fight. Shikamaru was trying to come up with a plan until Shade vanished, only to reappear in front of Shikamaru, punched him so hard in the ribs he broke 4 of them. That was all Choji needed. In a blind rage, he charged like a bull, swinging his hammer at Shade's head, but the assassin ducked it. Pulling out his knife, he sliced Choji's side, then his hand that held his hammer. Then Shade rammed the knife in Choji's shoulder blade. The Akamichi screamed in pain as Shade grabbed the hammer for the finishing blow, but Kiba grabbed the arm holding it. Neji's good hand coming in for a hit to the heart of the assassin, but Shade allowed his arm the drop with the hammer hitting Kiba's knee. Hearing a checking sound, the screaming Kiba was then used as a shield from Neji's blow, which Neji just managed to move enough not to hit Kiba's heart, hurting him but not killing him. The next thing Neji knew was Shade ramming Kiba's head to his own. Both men fell to the ground. Lee went for a spin kick, which Shade grabbed and with his elbow dislocated Lee's leg at the knee, but Lee still tried to swing a fist at Shade, who let the leg go but gave Lee a backhand fist to the face. Kakashi and Jiraiya had enough. Both men charged a Rasengan and Chidori, running full speed at Shade. Both were throwing their destructive jutsu at him. What happened next would echo throughout history. Shade flung his arms between the two jutsu, grabbing the men's arms while still holding their jutsu active arms. He pulled Kakashi forward so the two were on opposite sides of him. He pulled them with such force as their shoulders popped and was sending the Chidori towards Jiraiya and the Rasengan towards Kakashi. He was going to use them to kill the other with their jutsus of legends. Tsunade arrived in time to see it happening. It was as if time slowed down. Eyes widened at the sight. Her thoughts were screaming, seeing as she couldn't. No. She managed to get out, moving as fast as she could. Kamen was even shocked at what was going to happen. Shade was going to win when a force of nature slammed into his unguarded back, a pink blur launching him from his spot, flying into a black blur, kicking him to the ground. Sakura with all her might pushed the two older shinobi away, making the fly 10 feet in the opposite direction. The black blur appeared as Sasuke went with such speed to Shade, sword in hand, that actually got a hit, slicing the assassin's arm before he moved out of the way. Sasuke and Sakura standing side by side like the old day. The assassin known as Shade inspected the cut, eyes nearly glowing blue in anger. He looked at the two, not happy at all but still not making a sound of any type of pain. He pulled his knives out and took a stance. For the first time since the fighting started, Sakura and Sasuke were ready. Sakura in her fighting stance, Sasuke sword in hand. No one moved for what seemed like a minute until they heard the Shade speak in a muffled whisper. "Open first gate." And like a hurricane, everyone was hit with a blast of power. The Shade's stance didn't change as the power flowed through him. No screams of power, no tension in the body. He was used to it like it was an everyday thing. Sasuke covered Sakura as she charged at the Shade, who dodged her punch easily, delivering one of his own back, but Sasuke pushed her out of the way, slashing at Shade, who blocked with his knife, then jumped in the air. The two teammates joined him, Sasuke trying an upward slash that Shade moved mid-air from, then using his arms in an X blocked Sakura's axe kick. The two held that position all the way down. As Shade's feet hit it, created a small crater. Sakura putting more force into it. Shade just managed to escape, only to be greeted by Sasuke's stabbing motivation towards him, moving to the right and spinning down the to Sasuke. Shade pulling his knife in an underhanded swing, aiming for Sasuke's face, only for him to roll out of the way. The fight between the two-on-one was a sight to see. Ambu all around the Chunin and Jonin cheering Sakura and Sasuke on. It seemed to anger the Shade. Having enough, he dodged their attack and jumped back. He put his knives back in the holster and walked up to them. Sakura ran straight on, winding up a punch with her right. Sasuke from behind, about to do the same as she threw her fist. Shade with his left open hand grabbed her fist and all the power with it. He didn't move, then brought her forward for a knee to the gut, then hooked his right hand under her arm, keeping her bent over and moving at a speed that her head hit Sasuke's midsection, making him bend. Then grabbing a handful of pink hair, brought the back of her head into Sasuke's face before kicking him into a wall. Sakura, dazed, tried to land a hit but to no avail. The last thing she felt was something sharp in her side before she fell. The look on everyone's face at seeing the brutality the Shade had shown stunned all but Lee. He was mad. He watched Shade with anger, unable to do much with his leg in such a mess, it being dislocated at the knee. He grabbed the lost leg and with a scream to soften the pain slammed it into the ground, popping it back in place. He stood up and looked at the man that turned in time to see the display, his angry yet neutral look still in place. Lee yelled at the top of his lungs. Gates of opening, rest, life, pain, closing. 5 inner gate in one go. Lee was going crazy from so much power and finished off by yelling, "Oh, PPPPENNNN." As the power flooded in the air, Shade's eyes widened slightly. Kamen moved beside Tsunade, looking at Lee, a small grin on him as he said, "Interesting." Shade's response to this was, "Open third gate." An expiation of energy throw many of the shinobi back. The power he had was frightening as he stood there, arms crossed. By the look of things, between Rock Lee, the taijutsu master of Konoha, and the new Shade, the legendary assassin, it would be clash of titans. Both stood there for a moment, green and blue energy all around them. Lee's face was red and his eyes a pupilless white, the Shade an icy blue, though his skin remained the same. Lee noticed he was 2 gates over his enemy. It was something that vexed him. He looked at Shade and said, "I have done much research on your predecessor, the first Shade, the legendary taijutsu master. He was known as the old school assassin, preferring physical combat and stealth, a true master of both. For you to have his title means you are strong enough to earn it." No response came, so Lee continued, "I was trained by Konohagakure's beautiful green beast, the taijutsu master Maigwei, the welder of the flames of youth. So with that said, what I want to know about you is, why did you only go up 2 gates to my 5? The Shade spoke for the first real time since his arrival, his muffled yet deep voice still showing no real emotion to it, a pure and cold, the voice of a professional assassin. "Because you're not worth the extra effort, comrade killer." Lee's tone to this was sad. "I see. I guess I'll have to prove you wrong." Lee's eyes glowed with purpose. Lee charged at Shade, delivering a flying kick. Shade moved out of the way and was seen on a nearby roof, arms crossed. Lee joined him again, jumping at the impossible height for someone with no chakra control, and tried a punch which Shade caught and with his free hand in the span of a blink struck Lee in the ribs, then the face. As Lee went back from the hit, he was pulled close for a knee to the kidneys, then elbow the side of the head, knocking him to the ground. Instead of just getting up, Lee went for a upward kick for the primary lotus, but what he got was Shade grabbing his leg, lifting him over Shade's head and slamming him through the roof. Lee stumbled out the front door of the restaurant he just went through. Shade leapt off the building and landed a few feet away with a powerful force. Lee flew at Shade with a right punch. The assassin moved his head so the punch missed, but as the punch was passing, Lee bent his arm and elbowed Shade on the side of his jaw. As Shade's head turned from the impact, Lee then spun and hit Shade in the gut with his foot, doubling Shade over and kneeing Shade's face. As Lee was going for another punch, Shade moved and gave Lee a hard right kick, knocking Lee back, then a left hook to Lee's side, a right to the ribs and one to the face. The dazed shinobi tried to block when he felt a hard finger hit his arm, then leg, then neck, left arm and right leg. The pain was unreal. Then he realized to his shock Shade was using the Hyuga gentle fist. Others caught on in shock as well. After Shade finished the move, he gave Lee a sharp kick back to the ground. Lee struggled back up the gates he had on, dissolved away, returning to his usual self. The Shade version of the Hyuga style hurt like hell. His body wanted to drop, but Lee wouldn't have it. "I cannot lose to you," he said, tired and hurt with a pained tone in his voice. "You have hurt my friends and I swore to never let that happen again." Shade's response was blunt. "Well, you failed." As Shade made his way to Lee, he said coldly, "You have gotten in my way, Lee, now pay the price." Pulling his knife out, he walked to Lee when he heard the sound of something coming at him at high speeds, jumping back before the crash. Shade then knew from the bowl haircut and green spandex it was a very angry Maigwei. His goofy over-the-top personality was replaced with a hardened shinobi's will to kill. He looked at his former student. "Lee, you've done enough, but now it's my turn." Lee looked at him. "Wei sensei, this is my fight. I have to stop him myself." Gui looked at Lee. This is not up for discussion, Lee. You have come a long way with and without me to train you. Lee was taken by surprise. Giving his student a look of respect. You are the splendid shinobi you always wanted to be, but this man was trained by one of my heroes. He is probably one of the most dangerous taijutsu users in the world, and I will not see you fall to him. With that last part, Gui started opening the inner gates. At this started to really annoy Shade, while his target Kamen couldn't be having more enjoyment from it. I have no quarrel with you, Gui. Allow me to deal with that bastard Kamen and you will not see me again, but if you wish to proceed with this I will kill you without hesitation. Shade's tone was deadly serious. The power that Gui had didn't bother him in the slightest. I know you were trained by the great original Shade, so I doubt I can best you easily, but I will not stand for you attacking my students, and unfortunately Kamen is important to Konoha's survival. Shade stared him down with his menacing blue eyes. Then Konoha will die with him. Gui charged Shade and delivered a kick which Shade blocked with one arm, not even moving. Open fifth gate. Shade set a blast of power, throw Gui back. Asuma trench knives in hand and Kurenai joined Gui. Great, the teachers and friends to traitors have joined in on this. Konoha is running out of people who are worth a damn. Tsunade jumped in front of them, followed by Jiraiya and Kakashi after being healed but a beat in Hinata and Sakura. If it isn't the bitch herself. Shade said coldly. I'm really starting to hate you more and more. Jiraiya said, Shade giving him an annoyed look, and replied. Given the reputations you three have involving friends, students and lovers, I'll live longer that way. Kamen laughter was loud as he said, he's got you there. Shut up, Kakashi said angrily at both Shade and Kamen. I'm tired of this Tsunade-sama. Between the five of us we can take him. Shade looked at him sharply. Because that worked so well the last time, Hitaki. I am better than Konoha's elite. The fact that you lived this long is because you're not my target. All I want is Kamen, nothing more. Besides, I doubt whatever he's offered you to is real. Tsunade looked at him perplexed. He's paid us already, so we must honor the agreement, Shade said, cutting her off, and looked at the grinning Kamen. How much? 310 million, Kamen returned. How much of it is real? Everyone's eyes widened at that remark and all looked at Kamen, who smiled widely. Not a Ryo. What? Tsunade said angry. But I saw it with my own eyes. I have our most trusted accounts looking at it as we speak. Shinobi started to crowd Kamen and his men, angry with the still grinning man. You wouldn't dare, not with you still in the city. Shade voice gave off, and I know something you don't. Vibe for everyone there who wasn't Kamen. Are you so sure about that? Kamen said, daring Shade. His men were shaking. Shade looked at Tsunade. If I were you, I'd get Jiraiya and your Ambu to the location that money is at now. Kamen raised an eyebrow. When did you start caring about Konoha? Since I'm currently standing in it, and I'm not leaving without your head, Guro, was Shade reply. What are you two talking about? Tsunade yelled, shaking with rage. We once destroyed a village of thieves by paying them off with money, but in truth they were actually explosive tags that we made to look like genuine cash. I wouldn't be surprised if you accounts couldn't tell the difference, but I doubt they're all tags. Are they, Kamen? Kamen smirked. True, there's only about 10,000. I only wanted to fuck with Konoha. Destroying it comes later and it's a lot more fun. Tsunade yelled. Jiraiya, Ambu get to lock up now, the rest stop these two. As she turned to Shade, she realized he was gone from his spot. Jumped towards Kamen with his gaze still very much active. Kamen moved easily out of the way with a smile. This should be a good time putting you back in your place, little brother. Shade was visibly angry at being called that, and with a whip of his knife struck at Kamen, who stopped it with a blade hidden in his cane. The two locked blades. Ambu attacked them. Shade swing around with a spin kick, knocking them down. Stay out of this, he screamed. I agree, Kamen said, killing the Ambu in his end. Going back to his fight with Shade, the two men started swing and blocking and slashing and parrying each other. Shade, the master assassin, and Kamen, the mysterious former client. Their fighting was crazy. Shade was losing ground to him but was yelling when he jumped back. Why? Was what he said. Sensei, go to Akane Hina. Their blades clashed. Fang. Shade parried. Drake. Kamen blocked. Doc. Shade with a high kick. Kamen moves back. Kyoko. Shade's attack becomes stronger. Chi. Finishing with a hard punch to Kamen's face, sending him flying back. Why? Why did you kill them? Shade said clearly. Rage filled a pained tone in his voice. Kyoko looked up to you like an uncle. Chi loved you like a brother. Sensei took you in like you were his son. Doc, Drake and Fang were our comrades, and Goda trusted you with his life and that of Akane and Hina. So why did you do it? Money, power, the throne. Why? Shade's tone was desperate, asking for the truth that plagued him. Kamen raised from the spot, blood licking from his mouth, shinobi all around watching the drama play out, many more not wanting to go between the two, knowing full well it would mean death. Kamen smiled and stared to laugh. It was loud and monstrous and crazy. Ha ha ha, simple brother, I don't want to be forgotten. I didn't want to be just another name edged into the Guardian's tome so only the overprivileged can read if they feel like it, to be known only by friends and forgotten in the next generation. No, I am Guro Kamen. I will be remembered from the beggars to the whores to the generals to the daimyos to the emperors to the very gods. Shade looked at Kamen angrily. Why did they have to die, Guro? Guro smiled. Because the old man wouldn't have allowed me to go freely, because I needed Steel Tree's military to start, so obviously Goda had to go and his family, so no one could stop me with their right of birth. I doubt he, Doc, Drake or Fang would let that happen. Those three were always loyal and I was mostly right. It's unfortunate Lin wasn't there, but what can you do? Shade was even angrier, but Kamen continued. And as for Kyoko and Chi, well, that brings us to my other reason. Shade was silent for this as Kamen stared into his cold blue eyes, into his very soul. I did this to get you good and pissed so we could have the fight I have wanted from you the whole time. When we unlocked the ninth gate together, that was when I knew you were the one thing I needed to cement my legacy as the deadliest man in the world. They died because of you. Naruto Uzumaki. A course of widening eyes of mouths agape as the assassin known as Shade in anger removed his hood and mask, revealing his face. It confirmed who he was. His spiked blonde hair, his raging blue eyes, whiskered face more defined now that he is an adult, a cross-shaped scar going down his right eye to his cheek. No one could believe it. Naruto, Tsunade whispered as she was going to approach him unconsciously. It can't be. Sakura said, tears in her eyes. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, about to cry. How? Was all the shocked Sasuke could say. Naruto is alive. Kakashi said, on the verge of a heart attack. It was a mixed bag of emotions. Tsunade was getting closer when she heard, stay back Senju or I'll kill you where you stand. Naruto's voice left no room for debate, his trusty knife pointing at her. The only reason you're not dead is because Kamen is here. You got in the way of that too many times already, and for that the next step you take will be your last. Everyone present was frightened, even the Sannin. Naruto was merciless in their fight and was ready to kill given the chance. Naruto, please. Sakura shouted, let us. She was cut off with, you heard him, he wants to be a big boy and get the job done. Rikamaru-sensei always was a one target one kill type of guy, training Naruto here to do the same thing. Nothing else is important to him right now, not even you people. The only reason I hired you was to piss him off and you made it happen. Good job. Kamen grinned. But seeing as Naruto told you about the fake cash, I guess I don't need to hide it anymore. With that, Kamen used his strange chakra ring on the seal on the forehead of his silver-skulled cane blade. When the seal started to glow, Neji realized. That's the detonator. Everyone moved. Shinobi scattered. At the Konoha Resource and Accounting Firm. The money was going through Suserati, where it is checked and counted. Shizune, as Tsunade's most trusted assistant, was overlooking things, leaning by the door, boredom showing in her eyes. Each bill was going through 3 different hands. A Hyuga Ambu who checks the bills for traps with his Byakugan eyes. A quality tester makes sure the bills are real given the size of the sum of money. Any of them could be fake, and an actual accountant for keeping the numbers to bad. The money is unbelievably good. Fakes. No traps. This one's real. 1,801,000. No traps. This one's real. 1,802,000. No traps. This one's real. 1,803 inches. Ambu at the ready at all times, but by God they hated this part of the job. The novelty of so much money lost the appeal during this stage. Hours of listening to no traps. This one's real. 1 million. Whatever. It was also a type of training for them to deal with tedious tasks like gate guard duty and long-term surveillance. As they were counting, the Hyuga grabbed another bill, and when he looked his eyes widened, especially when it started to glow. He shouted, Shizune, getting her attention. Run. Those were his last words. Shizune bolted to the door before 10,000 paper bombs went off. At the explosions, shock waves smashed her, throw the door, fling her down the hallway. Fire followed close behind her. She hit the wall. As the flames come closer and closer, she let out a scream, closing her eyes, preparing for the pain, but a forceful grip on her arm was all Shizune felt before being thrown through a window. She opened her eyes fast enough to see the Ambu that saved Burn alive. From the outside of the KRA. Jiraiya was running as fast as he could, but the blast rocked the village, covering his eyes from the flash, and debris. Parts of the building landed on houses, shops and people. Jiraiya, only by the grace of the Almighty, saw Shizune falling after being thrown, and as fast as he possibly could he summoned his fastest toad to leap and get her. He looked at the destruction all around him, screaming, crying, fire engulfing the last of village's savings, more importantly to the death of so many innocent people. Jiraiya may not like a vast majority of the people of Konoha these days, but he wasn't so jaded not to feel bad for them. But right now he turned to the accompaniment of Ambu Jonin and Chunin and ordered, "Go out there, look for survivors. You get the medics, you take the east, you the west, you the south, you the north, go go go." Ninja flying all around him as he was giving orders. "I'm going back for the Hokage and to deal with the bastard responsible." He inserted double the amount of chakra into his legs that he was storing to deal with the bombs and gunned it. "Tsunade, you better be okay." Back at Konoha gates, so many saw the explosion. The shinobi with families in the blast zone were worried sick. Tsunade saw this and couldn't believe her eyes when they turned to see the thought dead Naruto. However, she found he didn't even bother to look at the destruction. His frozen blue eyes were entirely focused on Kamen, and he was watching Naruto. "You know, I thought that would have got at least a small reaction from you, Naruto. I mean, this was your village once?" Kamen said, a little disappointed. Naruto said coldly, "Does it look like I care about any of them, Guro? They're traitors, every last one of them." Tsunade at the statement felt her heart sink, as did many in attendance. Hearing such a thing from Some, a friend to Tsunade's son and to most the son of the fourth, it cut deeply. Tsunade didn't know what to do about, but she looked to her soldiers and ordered, "All shinobi with families, go find you loved ones." As those shinobi left, she continued, even though it hurt, "The rest of you get Kamen and capture Naruto alive and unharmed." "Good luck with that, Senju," Kamen said, and continued, "Boys, time to have some fun." Kamen's bodyguards ran to his aid and Kamen removed his long jacket. Naruto got into his battle stance. Konoha shinobi prepared for a fight. Tsunade didn't know if she should help or capture Naruto because she once tried to have Naruto killed and he didn't seem to have forgiven her for that too. Whoever Kamen really is has pissed off not only Naruto but all of Konoha. And 3. Naruto was apparently trained with the legendary assassin the Shade himself, so she doubted anyone could take him, but she needed to know what happened to the one-time child she thought of as a son. Naruto and Kamen watched each when they heard, "Now?" An order from Tsunade was their trigger. They disappeared before anyone got to them. Kamen's men fought the shinobi and did a pretty good job of it too, but the two students of the Shade nka Rikamaru were found on a rooftop. Sparks were flying from their blades as they clashed, slashing and stabbing at each other, blocking, parrying, kicking, punching at speeds most couldn't comprehend. But to their surprise, Kamen managed to get a cut on Naruto's cheek and Naruto got Kamen's side. Then, as if it was a person fighting his own shadow, the two high kicks connected. Then, using their other's leg as leverage, they kicked with the other leg. Then the other Naruto took one to the rib, Kamen to the shoulder, kicking off the other. They backflip away. "It's been a while since we fought, Naruto, but I thought you were stronger than this," Kamen said, grinning till a knife hit his hat off his head from a shinobi who charged at Kamen, only to get a kunai to the head by one of Kamen's men, killing him. While Kamen was distracted, he failed to see Naruto's elbow hitting him square in the face, making him fall. Naruto, on top of his one-time friend, started punching Kamen hard in the face, making the back of his head crack. The roof they were on, all Naruto could say was, "Die, you bastard, die, die, die." As Naruto was about to deliver another blow when he was stopped by Jiraiya. Not knowing the identity of the Shade since he was gone, who grabbed his hand when Naruto turned to shove his ex-godfather away, he ended up feeling a sharp pain in his gut. His wide-eyed former godfather looked down to see the knife sticking out of Naruto's stomach as Naruto looked down to see Kamen, a blood on his face but no major damage. His 5 gates disappeared. He leaned over and fell. Jiraiya caught him but Kamen kicked them away. "You know, Naruto, I'm disappointed in you," Kamen said. "Look at everyone I killed over the years that you loved and still you failed. I know you're better than that." Naruto lead up from Jiraiya. "Mon. I will kill you, you bastard." Kamen smiled. "That's the spirit, Naruto." Naruto tried to pull the knife out but Jiraiya grabbed his hand, keeping him from doing so. Tsunade may have been the medic of his old team, but Jiraiya knew if that knife was pulled out, Naruto would lose too much blood, and with his anti-Jinchuriki seal still on Naruto from when he tried to kill him, it meant no healing ability from Kyuubi and Naruto would die. "Naruto, you have to stop pulling that blade out, it will kill you." Jiraiya screamed, tears in his eyes, trying to get through to the boy he thought of as a son and greatest sin he ever committed. "So now you care, Jiraiya, after everything you've done to me?" Naruto painfully said. I don't care if I die as long as Guro joins me on the trip to hell. At hearing that Naruto's former friends felt their hearts stop when Guro Kamen heard this, he had a grin of amusement. Well Naruto, you failed again. I'd say listen to Jiraiya on this one, though I want you at your best for our real fight. Naruto looked at him with a hated. None of his former friends thought he was capable of having. He started to struggle. Jiraiya's head was still steady on the blade, keeping it from moving, that is until Naruto head butted him with the back of his head to Jiraiya's face, freeing him. Guro! Naruto shouted, the pain in his gut forcing him to his knees, but he got back up. He was running on anger alone. I'll kill the entirety of Konoha to get to you, every last one of them. Kamen looked at him for a moment. In his mind's eye he saw a bleeding angel and Naruto saw a monster from hell itself. Kamen smirked. Everyone in Konoha, eh? I wonder what your father would say about that. Naruto looked at the monster, only he could see as he continued running, screaming. I don't care what he'd say, he's dead, fuck him. The Konoha shinobi were shocked, the fourth's own son saying such a thing about him, even more so when with the anger behind it Naruto vanished till they saw him punch Kamen across the building to Kamen's surprise, but Kamen did a flip and landed on his feet only to get a knee to the gut and a knife to the shoulder blade. He was used to pain though, and he punched the knife in Naruto's stomach, drive it deeper, then kicked it, making Naruto grunt in pain as he flew to the ground. Kamen managed to get up and held his shoulders, smiling at what happened. I'll give you credit for that one, Naruto. He walked up to Naruto, delivered a boot to his face. Naruto was in a massive amount of pain but held it in. But it's still not good enough. Kamen then stomped on Naruto's chest. Leave him alone. Kamen heard Sakura shout as she tried to punch him. He moved back and avoided Lee's kick, then Sasuke's sword, Neji's plum, Tenten's sparred, Choji's hammer, Kiba's claws, Hinata's kick, Ino's kunai, Shikamaru's shadows. Is that your best? Kamen said, unimpressed, but he stared to feel his energy being drained. What's this? Kamen said, annoyed and confused. He reached behind his back and pulled out a handful of little blue beetles. He crushed them and said, totally forgot about you, Shino, but I suppose you get that a lot. The bug user known as Shino adjusted his shades. Yes, I do, annoying as it might be, but I've had you and Naruto tagged since his fight with the Hyugas and you when you destroyed Hiras Tower, but I must say I had to stop with trying to drain Naruto. My insects keep dying and I don't know why. It was a statement, not a question. Kamen was a little angry with Shino. And here I thought you weren't a threat, Shino. When you despaired I just thought you were a coward. He looked at Naruto and gave a small nonchalant wave. See you later, brother. I'll tell the rest of the guys you said hi. Don't you dare leave, you bastard, Naruto yelled, but Kamen's response was, open first gate. The blast of energy caused Shino's bugs to explode and he vanished from sight. Naruto jumped up yelling, Guro came back here. He was going after him when Tsunade grabbed him. Wait, Naruto, you can't leave, you're hurt and I'm not letting you go even if you weren't. A punch from an angry Naruto was the response she got as she turned from the impact. He kicked her but her grip didn't give. She accidentally pulled him and as she let go he fell off the roof, landing hard on his back. The force made him spit up blood. Naruto! She screamed in fear for his health. Kamen's bodyguards heard her and noticed Naruto. One of them ran at him attempting to finish him but was stopped by Tsunade with a single punch. She encaved the bodyguard's face and the remaining four ran at her but were butchered by Sakura, Tenten, Kiba and Sasuke. Tsunade turned to see Naruto. Worried, she ran to him. Tears ran down his eyes as he stared blankly into nothing as if possessed. With a weak voice, Kyoko. I'm sorry. I failed you, please forgive me. He started to reach for something. Tsunade was wondering what was happening when she saw Kurenai in her genjutsu stance. Kurenai, what are you showing him? Kurenai, still in stance, said. It's a desired genjutsu, it's showing him the thing he wants most. Kurenai, being the caster, could see what Naruto saw. It was a woman and little girl. The woman was about the same age as Naruto with enchanting sweet violet eyes with long chestnut hair that was tied in a ponytail. She was wearing a brown farmer's kimono, nothing really fancy, and banana wrapped around her head. She had a body that made Kurenai a little jealous, but what caught her eye most was the child. The little girl in question must have been all of 4 years old. She had long crimson red hair with lovely ocean blue eyes that almost seemed to sparkle and an infection smile. Kurenai couldn't help but be happy at the sight of her, but as she looked at Naruto she could feel the sadness leaking off of him as she looked at them. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Kyoko, I wasn't there for you. I never thought Guro would go this far. Naruto started to stand, blood leaking from his wounds. Naruto, you have to stop now. Kurenai, stop the jutsu now. Tsunade ordered, but she saw Kurenai had tears in her eyes. She put the pieces together. She didn't register the Hokage's orders at all. Tsunade turned to Naruto as he said, I'll get him for you, all of them, they're all dead. Naruto shouted angrily, then squeezed the knife wound and screamed in angry pain, but it broke the jutsu. Rage filled his eyes. How dare you, Kurenai? His eyes turned to her, she flinched at the gaze. How dare you make me see that? Naruto phased from existence, then reappeared behind her with his spare knife to her throat, his other arm wrapped around her waist, keeping her from moving. Naruto saw the regret in her eyes before he moved, but that was no excuse to him. Naruto, stop, please let her go. Asuma yelled, fear in his voice, as Naruto was about to slit her throat when he stopped. The hand around her waist moved to the center of his belly, anger still very visible in his eyes, but he did something surprising. He let her go and pushed her aside, not with so much force to harm her, just enough to move her. Go, Kurenai, if I see you in this again, I'm taking one of your eyes, got that? Kurenai nodded and backed away slowly, Asuma right there to get her. Asuma wanted to know why Naruto would let her go, but fear gripped him in case Naruto changed his mind. Even now he was quite dangerous. Take her away, Asuma, now. Naruto ordered dangerously. Naruto, I'm sorry, Kurenai started but was cut off. What I just gave you was for the child, but the offer doesn't extend to the father. Keep it to yourself and leave now. Asuma was surprised at what he just heard. He gently grabbed Kurenai and looked at Tsunade for what she'd say. Go, Asuma. With a nodded, he and Kurenai vanished. Naruto, how did you know? Tsunade said, puzzled. That's my business, Senju, was the reply. I've wasted too much time on you traitors. Guro is gone and I'm too injured to get him because of that worthless Jiraiya. I'm leaving and I won't hesitate, kill everyone here to do so. The shinobi in attendance flinched. Many drew their weapons. Fight or flight about to take hold. All shinobi, don't kill Naruto or you're next. They stopped immediately at that. Trying to save that pleasure for yourself, Senju, Naruto said, holding his wound as he stared to breath heavily. I'm not going down without a fight, and this time my back isn't turned. Naruto, you idiot, I'm trying to help you, Tsunade said, tears in her eyes. The only thing that made me an idiot was trusting you. You're nothing but poison, Senju. Naruto, despite all efforts, was getting tired. He had a job to do, and come hell or high water he was going to see it through to the end. Tsunade couldn't believe what she just heard. She was going to cry but held off. She had something to do first, and that was to save Naruto, whether he liked it or not. Naruto, if I have to take you down in order to save you, I will. Tsunade got into her battle stance. You can try, Sen. Naruto fell to his side. He lost too much blood, passing out. He didn't have much time left. Tsunade gunned it to Naruto, as did Sakura. Tsunade checked his pulse. It was fading fast. We have to get him to the hospital now. Before one of them could order a medical unit, Jiraiya appeared on a toad. He grabbed Naruto, Tsunade and Sakura and ordered the toad to step on it. The race to the hospital time was short, but Jiraiya wasn't going to lose Naruto again.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.